You can now follow me on all my social media platforms to find out who my latest guest will be. And don't forget to click the subscribe button and the notifications bell so you're notified for when my next podcast goes live.
And this effectively is a big, big insult. And if I'm to put it really bluntly, it is literally a big fuck you, not only from Netanyahu to all of the American people, but especially those that actually represent some level of humanity. It is a big fuck you, not only from Netanyahu, but from the U.S. government, who was all clapping for this. The U.S. government is mocking the American people and serving its master, a proven war criminal, who is the master slave owner who's treating us in parting like the goyim. We are. We are the goyim. They are the chosen ones in their own mind, and their Talmud literally says that they can rape our children. It is holy and agreed upon within their Talmud. Their Talmud says that Jesus, who they hate, is boiling in hot excrement in hell. They say that Mother Mary is a whore, and they see us as goyim and as slaves. And according to their spiritual beliefs, we are to be lied to, we are to be enslaved, and where we're surplus to requirements, to be killed. And that man who has this absolutely sadistic, horrendous disregard for humanity, actively engaged in a genocide, mocked the American people, and the U.S. government, who represents the taxpayers of America, literally had a big fuck you to America. And to the U.S. military, who put on this uniform and took an oath to protect and defend the Constitution of the United States and fight all enemies, foreign and domestic, you have a duty to refuse the orders. And it's those that love the Constitution, who love America, black, white, Christian, Muslim, Hindu, Sikh, Mexican. We all have one thing in common. We are goyim and we outnumber them. We must come together. And when we do, we will liberate not only the world, we will liberate our children. And we have an opportunity to give it to our children in a way that we can feel good about. That is the opportunity that is presented by this mocking of not only the American people, but really the entire world, or Western world at least. So thank you for allowing me to say that. I haven't anything more to say.
I'm sure that's a lie, Ken. Listen, thanks for coming on today, and again, sharing the things that you think about in the world, the things that you have educated yourself on, the things that you're against. And like I say, people just question everything Ken says, I say, and give your own perception of life. But as long as everybody can get on and try and live in harmony, then yeah, we can keep trying to get that anyway. But Ken, thank you, and I wish you all the best for the future.
Thank you. God bless you.
You can now follow me on all my social media platforms to find out who my latest guest will be. And don't forget to click the subscribe button and the notifications bell so you're notified for when my next podcast goes live. And boom, we're on. And today's guest, we've got Ken O'Keefe back for part 2. Straight away, your last interview just a couple of weeks ago, Ken, went viral. We spoke about 9/11, Hitler, many other things. Today we're going to touch on, the world's biggest conspiracies, how the world's run, how it's operated, who's behind that, the families, a lot of dark stuff that I think a lot of people are waking up to as well. But first and foremost, how are you, brother?
Well, first I'm 55. I was
Happy
54,
birthday.
so I'm having a little post birthday celebration here.
Happy birthday.
That's the Irish in me. I'm blessed. I am blessed, and it was an amazing conversation. I have been blessed in my life, and you clearly have the same gift. Having a conversation with energy that is positive and constructive, no alternative agendas, revealing of truth. It's amongst the most stimulating things, one of the most rewarding things in my life. So I thoroughly enjoyed the conversation. So it's no surprise to me. I've had many people say how they watched the entire 4.5 hours. You're hard pressed to get people to sit down for 10 minutes. To actually get people who are taking their phone. I had people tell me like they had to use the toilet, but they didn't want to miss it, and the other people were watching it, so they literally got it on their phone and like were watching it in the toilet. It was beautiful. It's a blessing from God, and no doubt about it. Many of the issues that we discussed in that last one, well, people are talking more.
Yeah. This jacket you're wearing, Ken, what is that?
So we've got an important date coming up soon, August 6th. How many out there know what August 6th is? I know, and I know. And there's one of the most iconic pictures. War is something that's very close to my heart, having been in a war, having been in combat. There's my combat action ribbon right there. Remember that picture of what became known as Napalm Girl? Remember that picture of the girl running in the street? Her arms are out, her clothes are off, and she's clearly in deep trauma. We all remember that picture if we've seen that picture. There's another picture I remember very well. I made this film, The United States of Hypocrisy, talking about nuclear Armageddon and what it means, And I remember seeing a picture in Hiroshima from 1945, August 6th, whereby there was a mother, clearly a mother, and there was a baby, both on the ground, both clearly dead and charred, like blackened, charred. And I remember looking at that picture and just seeing this baby and this mother. And I could imagine the moments, as the mushroom cloud rose and that heat wave came that literally incinerates bodies and whatnot. I remember meeting survivors from Hiroshima and Nagasaki. I actually was blessed to travel to Japan on a lecture tour back in 2004. And amongst the many blessings I experienced there, and I'm going to go ahead and end that phone, is I met 3 survivors of Hiroshima and Nagasaki in each of these places. And I remember when I sat down, you got to remember, in Japanese culture is very conservative, right? Very conservative. Now, the only guys that have tattoos like me over there are Yakuza. They're like gangsters, right? They're like the guys that you don't want your daughter going to. You would rather not know them. You just kind of let them, So I remember when they sat down to look at me, this teardrop tattoo, crazy hand tattoos and all this stuff. I remember the look on their faces because I've seen that look in many people who judge a book by its cover, right? And we sat down and we talked about what they went through. Of course, I haven't been through that, but they literally lived through that, lost loved ones. And what they realized so fast was that here was a young man who actually understands the magnitude of what it is that we're trying to warn humanity about. You do not want this to happen again. You do not want a nuclear weapon, a hydrogen bomb dropping on any place, quite frankly. And the horrors that they experienced and the stories they told were just stunning. But what they saw was somebody who they didn't need to sound the alarm. I knew it. I knew it back then, 20 years. I knew like, oh my God, we are flirting with World War III. And we hear right now we're on the verge of it yet again. And this is really dangerous where we're at. So I wear this to hearken back to my experience as a Marine and in memory of those that we've lost in all of these bloody wars. And we all know, of course, this current genocide that's being perpetrated by the support of our democratically elected representatives and with our taxes. But I wore this because once a Marine, always a Marine. And there's a couple things about what we Marines learn, especially us infantry grunts. We're not the kind of people that make excuses. We're not. when we have a mission, our mission is like, that's it, laser focused. Anything that deviates from the mission or in any way obfuscates or hampers the mission is not acceptable at all. And certainly whining and moaning and bitching and complaining has no place in a grunt's mentality. You know, my mission in the Marine Corps really was to protect and defend the Constitution of the United States, or so I thought. My other mission was to then defend the country. But the thing is, none of the wars that America has fought, or England for that matter, have been wars of defense. They're offensive wars, and they are done to carry out war crimes, crimes against humanity, and to capitulate anyone who would have the audacity to stand against the imperial prowess of the British Empire or the American Empire. So I wear this to make it clear that all of the Marines and all of the military, especially for the Americans, you took an oath to protect and defend the Constitution of the United States, to fight all enemies, foreign and domestic, so help you God. And there's the key line right there. Whatever judgment we get on this earth, and I've been through the ringer myself, I have been through stuff that would break lesser men, guaranteed. But none of that compares to the judgment we will get at the end of the day. And while people have adopted a secular, a nihilistic or agnostic perspective, so many, and by social engineering and very intentional, what they want to do is disconnect us from source and understanding that at the end of the day, there is a judgment. And what you reap, you shall sow. And whatever judgment we get, whatever punishment we might derive from speaking truth to power or doing the right thing, it's worth it. It's worth it. Anything and everything we can do. If you ever have the blessing, as I have had, to save lives, like literally, and both human and non-human, that feeling is something magnificent. And when you know that there is a God, when I pray, actually, and I do pray daily, literally, I don't say it every time, but I have said to God in my prayers, I want you to smile, God. I want to make you smile. I want you to see that I am your son who loves you. You're my only master. And whatever price I must pay, then so be it. I will pay that price. I'll be damned. I would be damned if I just took the side of the enemies of humanity and accepted the unacceptable, you know. There are so many things that are going by as normal in this world. For me, it's just one word: unacceptable.
What do you think of armies, though, going to other countries and destroying them? Like, it's okay protecting, because if people came to the UK and trying to invade, then you're from here, you would protect your own. But what do you think of other countries then going thousands of miles to other countries and stealing their land, stealing their oil, stealing their gold, like killing their innocent people? Like, what do you think of that also? Because if you're a Marine and then having to travel and do so as well, like, does that do you then change the way you see it?
That's a brilliant question, and it really is the point. And it really, it's going to morph and delve into a lot of other subjects. But my short answer to that: the people who join the military, like myself, which is the majority, we believe that we're fighting a good fight. If we're men, or, you know, I was a boy, you know, I now look back, you know, at 19, was I a man? No. Yeah, literally, you don't just become a man because you turn 18. There's a lot of actual necessary qualities to being a man. And we'll get into that subject as well. But we joined the military. Many people who do it, it's economic. You know, you come from downtrodden neighborhoods. The Scottish have done this. A lot of Scousers, or a lot of people would join the military because they get a job, guaranteed pay, they get to travel. And in America, you could get a college. In my case, what we had the GI Bill, so you do your 4 years and then you get your college paid for, right? So they pull us in with some benefits, but for me, it was really, I wanted to become a man, you know, and I didn't just want the military, I wanted the Marine Corps. And let me plug the movie Full Metal Jacket. The reason why I joined the Marine Corps was totally like random, I guess. I was working as a waiter in a French restaurant. I was making fantastic money. I was living in a place, Encinitas, I was living the life, man. I was driving a beautiful car, making great money. I could lie back in my bed and watch the sunset. I had a fridge, a short fridge with a tap on it and a keg, and I could pour beer from my tap pool outside my door. And me and my mate watched the movie Full Metal Jacket. And as I was watching it, within 5 minutes, I was like, that's what I need. And plus, my daddy didn't love me properly, so I wanted to impress my dad too. So that was an element. But we joined because we believe our nations are the greatest, or we believe that we'll defend our nation. We believe that we'll become men. How do I feel about going off to a war? You kind of asked, you already answered the question, but going off to a war, our job should be to defend the homeland. So there would be hardly any time that we would actually leave our territory in a better world. The world that I see is one in which that war of aggression, by the way, if we go back to World War II in the Nuremberg tribunals, do you know of all the things that Adolf Hitler supposedly did, right? I know the real reason. I'll get into more details about it. But of all the things that we've heard, mind control, oh, you know what you've heard about it, right? All of those things that he was accused of, that Germany was accused of, do you know what Nuremberg found was the supreme crime? War of aggression. Think of that. Now, Iraq? Afghanistan? Libya? Oh, okay. Syria? What are those? Those are wars of aggression. Did Libya, Syria, Iraq, Afghanistan truly represent a threat to the United Kingdom, to the West, or the United States?
No.
Absolutely not. So we fly. So when we go off to war, we didn't go from London over to France. You know, you could make an argument there, right? And back in the day, there was some reason for that. We went from England to Afghanistan to Iraq. Those are the places we went. That's like halfway around the world, or a bloody long flight. And we went to countries that never posed any threat to us. Not politically, not economically, not militarily. But of course, they tell us these things like weapons of mass destruction. Tony Blair and George Bush should be rotting away in a fucking prison for war crimes and crimes against humanity. And don't tell me they didn't know, or they got bad intelligence. Right. By way of deception, thou shalt do war, Mossad. Anyway, it's wrong, is what it is. And not only is it wrong, why do so many youngsters or people who've been in wars, for those, you probably know somebody directly yourself, or you certainly have talked to somebody who has a family member who went off to one of these wars, right? And when they come home, they're not the same. Many people know that. And when a question might be asked about, so what did you do, or how was it? The general response of people is silence, or they might even get upset and say, I'm going to talk about it. Why? Well, the reason why is because we commit war crimes and crimes against humanity. And it's so bad that we come home, we become alcoholics, we become drug addicts, we start beating our wives, we end up homeless, and many of us end up killing ourselves to the tune of 22 a day that we're committing suicide from the war on terror. Now, how do I feel about it? I wear this not to glorify war. I wear it to show that when I was a young man, I was young and dumb. I was a mercenary for the banksters. I thought I was fighting the good fight. But now they're going to start conscripting people. It's already in the works. That's part of why they're bringing in all these immigrants. Because guess what? A lot of the native people are they going to willingly sign up for the military? You can hardly get people. In fact, the recruitment rates in America are way down. They're not able to keep up with the need. Same thing here. Soon they're going to revive the draft. By the way, in Israel, it's mandatory service. Everybody has to serve in the Israeli Defense Forces, which is the Israeli Offense Forces. I'm against war. I have been against war for 3 decades. I only support war in the case of self-defense, which is why I have said, and why I'm on bail, and why I am a supposed hate speaker, and why I have been accused of supporting a prescribed group, because I shall say it again right here, You didn't have to wait long to the interview to hear Ken say something nobody else will say. I have nothing but love and respect for my brothers and sisters in Palestine and all oppressed nations who refuse to accept the unacceptable, who will not lie down, and who will fight with whatever weapons they have at their disposal against an overwhelming enemy which has the latest weapons and technology, including 2,000-pound bombs supported by my bird nation, the United States of America, 2,000-pound bombs being dropped on buildings, burying men, women, and children under the rubble to the point that we don't know the death count in Gaza yet. Love and respect to my men and women family members out there who may call themselves Muslims, but at the end of the day, they serve God. And this doesn't even get us into the lies that were spread about October 7th. Lie after lie after lie. Where is the evidence to support your 40 beheaded babies that Joseph Biden said he saw? That's a lie. That's a proven lie. But you still have pundits in this country right now from the lying prostituted media who are still saying 40 beheaded babies. Most of them have got the memo and shut up with that lie. But that was spread for month after month after month. Also, we heard about babies being put in ovens. Lie. That is a lie. We've heard about women being raped, but we've seen no evidence. Lie. Lie again. We are being told a narrative, and because the pundits, who were nothing more than paid prostitutes of propaganda, posing as journalists, they repeat it, they repeat it, they repeat it. All of our leaders, they repeat it, and we're supposed to believe it? Nah, I'm against war. I am for lawful, peaceful remedy. And I also stand with the resistance, whether they be Islamic, whether they be Christian, whether they be atheists for that matter. If somebody is coming into your land, like for instance the Jewish state that was created in 1948, this was genocide from day one. This genocide continues. Now it's openly declared. We have never, for anybody out there who doesn't understand, we have never, ever, in the last centuries, have we seen, not only seen, but a nation that we support. Our nation is lockstep. This nation is lockstep in line with the Jewish state of Israel, as is my birth nation, the United States. We are paying taxes to fund a genocide with the nation, including Netanyahu, just spoke at the United States Congress just yesterday. My own representatives, the one that I swore to defend the nation of, invited a proven absolute war criminal, and that war criminal at the Congress of the United States, literally, to the cheers of the representatives of the American people, Netanyahu literally called all of the young protesters useful idiots, pawns that were getting paid by Iran to protest against this genocide, and effectively said that they were all anti-Semites. He said they're all anti-Semites and that they were committing blood libel. If you don't know what that is, Google it. What is blood libel? How is it possible that the democratically elected representatives of the United States of America invited a proven war criminal whose warrant for his arrest, he's, you know the only country he can come to? He actually canceled travel plans to another country because of the possibility of him being arrested there. But he can come to America. Maybe that means my country is run by a foreign entity. Maybe that might have something to do with the dual nationals that are American citizens with Israeli passports as well. Maybe that has something to do with AIPAC, the American Israeli Public Affairs Committee. Maybe that has something to do with AIPAC paying hundreds of millions of dollars to the candidates that signed something known as the Pledge. I'm friends with a former congresswoman. Her name is Cynthia McKinney. God bless her. She's a beautiful patriot. She was a democratically elected representative in Stone Mountain, Georgia. Now, when she got to Congress on a very popularly backed ticket, when she got to Congress, she was doing her job representing the people. Jobs were not prevalent, and there were a lot of social issues that she needed to try and correct to her constituency, being a representative of her constituents in Stone Mountain. And election time was coming near, and she got all these people that were saying, we love what you do, Cynthia, we love what you do, and we're going to help you here, we're going to help you there. And they would promise this, and they would promise that. And then as they're making all this work and investing time with all these supportive people, they would then get to the point where then they would say, oh, Cynthia, have you signed the pledge? The pledge, right? Now, this is 20 years ago, right? What's the pledge, you might ask? Well, she knew what the pledge was. The pledge was you sign a document that says when anything Israel wants, the Jewish state of Israel, you make a pledge that you will support anything and everything that the Jewish state of Israel requires. And you sign that, you make a pledge. And then they assign an AIPAC representative to you, and they'll call you and they'll be, oh, did you see the bill? Blah, blah, blah. Well, she didn't, because she didn't understand what Israel had to do with Stone Mountain, Georgia. We don't have enough money to take care of the constituents here in Georgia. Why would we be given federal money that could be given to our own people to maybe, I don't know, improve the infrastructure, maintain the bridges and the roads, create jobs? That might be perhaps a better investment than to, say, give $10 million a day. That's $10 million a day going to Israel. And we just supplied another $25 billion deal in the middle of a genocide under Joseph Biden, so we could supply more 2,000-pound bombs that we can drop on buildings and kill men, women, and children and bury them under the rubble. And then withhold all the aid trucks and food. UNRWA, which is the UN agency that was bringing in and given the majority of food and aid and everything, has been declared a terrorist organization because the Jewish state says so. America was lockstep behind it, and the British government also supported that. They've just backtracked now and said, okay, no, we're going to start supporting. But they did have that policy in the meat and potatoes section of this genocide that we see playing out. We now have famine over there, but Cynthia McKinney, a beautiful patriot, well, she doesn't live in America anymore either. And when election time came, all the money that she was promised, she didn't get it because she didn't sign the pledge to the Jewish state of Israel. And ultimately, this is the way it works. And even now, literally, AIPAC just bragged. They literally just bragged. They literally just came out and said how great they did, that every candidate they supported with the head of the snake money won. Guess what that means? It means the only people, the only representatives in the American political system of any, like on a local council level or something, yeah, you might win and be a human being. But if you want to get to the higher levels, every single candidate that said, I don't really support this genocide, I think we need a ceasefire, just even calling for a ceasefire was enough to end your political career, because that's not what Israel wants. Israel wants more weapons. They want unconditional support. And this is why I've warned this, because I don't know, do we need the mushroom clouds to rise? Do we need World War III to realize, like, oh, shit, oh no, this is not good? Do we really need to get to that crisis?
What do you think of false flags? Do you believe they exist?
100% they exist, and provably so. And that's where, we have to use this thing called a brain here a little bit. They say this phrase, conspiracy theories, which many people know now is a term that was, although it does predate the CIA, it was the CIA that had a MK Ultra mind control program, whereby they would throw out this term, conspiracy theory. Now, we can all agree, if we have any sanity left, that conspiracies occur. Okay, have you ever met anybody who said, no, absolutely nobody conspires? We all acknowledge that conspiracies exist. Now, having said that, you've got stupid conspiracy. I'll tell you the most, here you go. I'll give you a great example of a conspiracy, yeah? Here's a great one, honestly. the official story of 9/11. Guess what that is? Well, it's a conspiracy, isn't it? I mean, was it a lone gunman? No. There was a conspiracy amongst, so we're told, is this Al-Qaeda group and this guy named Osama bin Laden, right? And he conspired with 19 hijackers who were armed with box cutters. And this head honcho who was on dialysis and did work as a CIA asset and was in a CIA-connected hospital in Dubai 2 months before 9/11 conspired. I mean, am I that's what they tell us. So that is a conspiracy. But the official version of 9/11 is a conspiracy. I'm sure we can all agree on that, right? That's more than one person conspiring to carry out this terrorist event. It's a conspiracy. Well, let me tell you a better conspiracy. Okay, that is a fairy story for us Celts out there. We like fairy story. That's a fairy story, mate. You're having a laugh, mate. Box cutters, eh? Sure thing, mate. Yeah. Oh, box cutters, flying passports. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense to me. Here's a better conspiracy. Let me tell you a better one. Let's look at, say, for instance, the bombing of the King David Hotel in Jerusalem that killed Brits mostly. I believe 80 or 90 Brits, right? That was carried out by one of the founders of the Jewish state of Israel, Menachem Begin. And they bragged about it, quite frankly. And there was a conspiracy, and the conspiracy involved the bombing of the King David Hotel, which was under the British mandate, which is predating the Jewish state of Israel's formation. So this was a big signal to the British, like, you will give us what we want, mate. The Jewish terrorists, Ergen, Stern Gang, these are Jewish terrorist groups. They carried out the bombing of the King David Hotel. How many Brits know this? Do you know this? Why shouldn't every Brit know, like, this part of their history? And why is it that we're so chummy with the the Jewish state of Israel? Let me tell you another conspiracy, an actual one that's proven, that's not disputable. You ever hear of the USS Liberty? Right. So, in 1967, an American warship, which was unarmed. It's a spy ship. It was the most decorated ship in the naval fleet, right? The USS Liberty. The biggest weapon it had is a 50 cal machine gun, which I'm telling you right now, that's not enough to stave off an air and sea attack, right? So that ship would always be escorted by battleships and aircraft carriers and things like that. It needs that for defense. Anyway, it was off the coast of Gaza, funny enough, back in 1967 on a clear, blue, sunny day. This was June of 1967, and I know, by the way, I'm friends with, and I'd be happy to introduce you to have a guest that would be great for your show, the survivors of the USS Liberty. Phil Turney as one, but there's others, and they can tell you the story direct. Anyway, they were out there in peacetime, and they were a spy ship, so their job was to listen in to the conversations and collect intel, which was happening during the 6-Day War, right? Well, the thing was that they were also being able to see that there was Israeli terrorists that were carrying out acts such as war crimes and slaughtering people left, right, and center, and they would have been privy to all of the information that would give them the truth about what is actually happening. Not what the media tell us, the actual truth, right? Not the fake intel, but the actual intel, right? And Israeli jets flew by. They did several pass-bys on that day. Clear blue, sunny skies, USS Liberty, an American military Navy ship, clearly marked with the stars and stripes flying. They flew by so close that many of the crew members actually have recounted the story of where they were like waving, and the pilots, they could see the pilots like waving back, right? So they're happy. They know our allies, Israel, is above and protecting them from up there. But after a little while, after several pass-bys, all of a sudden, out of nowhere, unmarked jets. So these don't have the Star of Remphan. Oh, I mean Star of David. The Jewish stars. Yeah, we'll get into that. That Star of David, that 6-pointed star, those markings weren't on these jets. And these jets strafed and fired mercilessly thousands of rounds, cannon fire, napalm, 50 cal, at the USS Liberty. The first thing they did, which they knew, was hit the communications. That, by the way, is what they did on the Mavi Marmara. We'll get into that, which, funny enough, that ship on the Freedom Flotilla, the Mavi Marmara, where I disarmed 2 Israeli commandos, was almost in the same exact area as the USS Liberty, ironically. Anyway, the first thing they did was knock out the communications. Now, the USS Liberty had been sent into waters that were not considered hostile, and that was the excuse for not having battleships and defense around it. So this ship is all on its own, and it's effectively defenseless. A 50 cal will do nothing to defend you against an air attack of that nature. So they're strafing it with cannon fire, 50 cal, napalm, and it becomes bloody real fast. They also come in with submarines, and the Captain McGonigal, I'm a captain as well, so this man was a hero. 4 torpedoes were fired at the USS Liberty, and they could see incoming, and he navigated the ship to be able to avoid 3 of them. One of them hit broadside the USS Liberty, and it blew like a 40-foot hole in the side of the ship. Now, had that been just slightly over, it would have hit the boiler room, which would have meant the engine would have exploded, and that ship would have gone right to the bottom, 100%. When you hit a ship broadside like that, first thing that's going to happen is you're going to be taking in masses of water. Many of the crew members that could have survived ended up drowning if they weren't blown to bits immediately, because the first thing you do is you call general quarters. As a Marine, I know this on a ship. We had these drills when I was in the Marines on a ship. When general quarters is called, you all have a station. And the first thing you do is you seal all the hatches. So all of the inner compartments, you have to close the hatch, turn the wheel, shut it off, watertight. This is to keep the ship from sinking. So obviously, if you get a big 40-foot hole blown in the side of your ship, those compartments where the water is flooding in, you need to shut those compartments so that the water can't fill the ship and sink it. So there were a lot of guys who were inside those compartments who couldn't get out in time. Either they were injured and nobody was able to get to them, and general quarters was called, so they had to close the hatches, and these guys ended up dying because they would have drowned or from their injuries. And this attack occurred for over an hour, and it was merciless. 1 torpedo hit, and then they brought in patrol boats as well, and it was absolutely merciless. They were trying everything they could. The USS Liberty, they managed to patch an emergency communications, which meant somebody had to go outside under all this fire heroically and create this rigged communications, and a signal did get through to the 6th Fleet. This is all on record, by the way, that I'm saying. So this is a conspiracy, and it's on record. Everything I'm telling you is verifiable fact for any serious historian out there. When the 6th Fleet got the signal, SOS, SOS, we're under attack, we need help, we need help, they immediately sent jets, Phantom jets, to come to the defense of the USS Liberty. While those jets had been sent, they were recalled. They were called back. This is the only time in U.S. history that a U.S. ship on record has been under attack, requested support that was available, and that support was refused. Ask me, why was it refused? We had a Secretary of Defense, Robert McNamara, who worked for a man named Lyndon Baines Johnson, who was the replacement for this man right here, John F. Kennedy. We all know what happened to John. We'll get back to him. Lyndon Johnson, a traitor, is the man who ultimately verified the order, because the admiral who was being ordered to call back the jets from McNamara effectively said he was going to refuse the order. Lyndon Johnson, the replacement of John F. Kennedy, traitor Lyndon Johnson, patriot John F. Kennedy, Lyndon Johnson got on the phone and said he verified the order and ordered the admiral to call back the defenses of the ship. And he said, quote, "I'm not going to embarrass our ally." That's his words. America has been taken over by this little state in the Middle East, and the interests who run it, Rothschilds included, we have been infiltrated. My birth nation and the Marines who sign up to be Marines, we don't serve and protect our nation. No, we are mercenaries for the banksters. Everything I have said is true, and when that ship miraculously survived, that's an act of God. And the thing that's kept it from being finished, the job being finished, was likely a Soviet ship was in the area. And it became clear that that Soviet ship was a witness. And I suppose they were not completely in line, or they might have been a bit of a loose end. So effectively, the attack, which was always intended to sink that entire ship, to leave no survivors, which, by the way, do you know what the intention of the Jewish state of Israel was? They were going to frame it. False flags, you asked me about that, right? They were going to blame it on Egypt, which was being run by a man named Abdel Nasser. Nasser was an Arab nationalist. You don't really have those anymore. He was intending, and he was allied with the Soviet Union, because you either had to have the backing of the empire, America, or the Soviets, kind of. You couldn't just be neutral like Switzerland. So Egypt and Nasser, who was doing more for his people than any Arab leader we can talk about today, if that ship had sunk, Israel would have gotten away with sinking and killing. They killed 34, by the way. 34 American sailors died that day. 1 Marine, 33 sailors. The whole point was to frame Egypt. And then the media, who's controlled by, I know that's anti-Semitic for me to say that, but we all know who runs the media, who owns the media. The media would have said that Egypt attacked our defenseless ship with all our heroes being dead, and God bless them. And yeah.
What do you think of the Titanic? Because there was rumours of the Rothschilds not going on that boat, JP Morgan not going on that boat, other Americans who are really rich to then dying on that boat, where they can then put the banking system together. Is it, how much truth is behind that, do you think?
Well, again, evidence. I'm a firm believer, like, if you're an investigator, you have to look at the evidence. If you believe in law, you have to have evidence. You can have whatever ideas you want. Hearsay and innuendo should not be allowed to indict. I believe firmly in the principle of innocent until proven guilty. And when we abandon this, I've been a target of slander and lies. Of course I am. You know how many times the police have have stolen my computers? I've lost count, man. All my computers, phones, they did it recently, this year, here in this country. If I was involved in any criminal activity, boy, I'm either really good at hiding that stuff, or I'm not involved in any criminal activity. If you are involved in criminal activity, you will leave a trail. There's going to be some evidence of that. So in terms of what's happening, the question again?
The Titanic?
Yeah, the Titanic. There's evidence, absolute evidence. It does bring in us Celts too, because, that ship was made in Belfast. They're very proud of that. But if you look at history, you'll find that wasn't the actual ship. They made 2. The version that we see, the evidence would suggest, and it's not the subject that I've studied as intensely as others, but I've looked and seen enough evidence to feel absolutely confident. One thing I know for sure, the three gentlemen that were on that ship were against what we now know, well, I know, the financial system that has bankrupted our nations to the point this country is 7 trillion pounds in debt. America is 34 trillion pounds in debt. Who do we owe this money to? Those very influential gentlemen, those three, were against that system. It was very convenient for the banksters that they died. Very convenient indeed. That's not debatable. That is not debatable. Now, we can debate whether it was an iceberg. We can debate whether it was a sister ship. We can debate a lot of things, but we cannot debate that those three gentlemen were against the system, which I would put forward and have given plenty of evidence to support my conclusion. Those that are running the world right now, say for instance, that are pulling the strings on the decisions being made in this country in support of Israel, Ukraine, right? Those that run my nation who bombed the Nord Stream pipeline, which would have reduced the cost of gas and had created a bilateral and mutually beneficial relationship between Europe and Russia. My nation definitely destroyed the Nord Stream pipeline, which hurts all of the European people. They are conspiring with nefarious interests who have a disproportionate amount of power, and their agenda is World War III. Their agenda, it would not continue to exist. And I think, I definitely want to talk about some of the topical events that are going on in this world, but I 100% agree with those that understand that there was a very huge motive for those three individuals in particular to be dead.
Yeah.
Extremely.
It's interesting, like we talk about the false flags and the conspiracies, but we'll touch on the assassinations. Now, the people who have tried to create change, JFK, you can say Bob Marley, Malcolm X, Gandhi, and then the assassination attempt on Donald Trump. Like, the Donald Trump one, would you think that's real or fake? Where scrapes the ear, he's got the fist up, it looks patriotic. He's been in the WWE before and it's fake. Like, I'm not saying it is fake, but it's it does change. It gets world headlines, plus it changes people to thinking he's our man, he's solid. Like, what do you think with the Donald Trump assassination?
Yes. Okay. First things first. Okay. Who stands to gain? That's always the first. Who had the motive? Who would have had an interest? So we'll get back to that. Looking at the execution of this assassination attempt, I am a Marine. Right here, I'm a rifle expert, 3rd award, right? So in the Marines, you have 3 levels of marksmanship. When you go to boot camp, you will qualify on the rifle range. We fire at the 200-meter line, the 300-meter line, the 500-meter line. At 200 meters, we're standing. At 300 meters, we're kneeling. So understand, firing and standing is the hardest position. It's hardest to hit your target when you're standing. Okay, so we do that at 200 meters. That's less than the distance of the shooter. He was 150 meters away, 150 yards, even less, from where that stage was. Okay, so keep that in mind, right? Standing, 200 meters. 300 meters, which is double the distance of the shooter on that day, we're kneeling, which is a much better position to fire from. Okay. From 500 meters, that's where we're in the same position as the shooter on that day, who was in the prone position, where you're lying down, you've got line of sight, there's nothing between you and your enemy. The only factor, which I haven't looked so deep, but from what I can see, it wasn't an incredibly windy day. Wind affects your round. You can't just fire straight. If you we have to check windage. We have to see which way is the wind blowing. All of this stuff. These are things we learn. We used to fire from 500 meters, so we're talking over 3 times as far from his target on that day, right? I can tell you this. I can hit somebody's head from 500 meters if they're stationary in the prone position, lying down. In fact, I used to do that. I've done that. I've done it 3 times. I've done that. Each time I wouldn't qualify. I was qualifying as the highest you could qualify. So my first comment on the shooter is, you suck, mate. Like, you suck. Even if Trump turned his head, which by the way, I mean, come on, if we're at the camera, right? If I'm looking, here's you see how much distance here. Now, if I turn, that becomes a wider distance, right? There we go. We've got that or that, right? Look at it. I mean, obviously, if you hit my jaw, I just saw footage of a like an 11-year-old girl in Gaza hit my shrapnel. It could have been a 7.62 like AK-47 round potentially, because if an AK-47 round hits you here from one side, I guarantee you it's going to punch through that jaw bone, completely punch it, take it away, and easily carry through into the second one and take your lower mouth and jaw off. That's what she looked like, literally. Her lower mouth was gone, completely alive, in total shock. Like an assistant, a doctor or something, trying to hold what's hanging, the flesh that's hanging from her. I say that because the shot and the weapon that he had was an AR-15, which is basically the same as the M16A2, which I fired, but I was a machine gunner. I was even better. So I was given the extra responsibility of carrying the M249 SAW, the squad automatic weapon, which is a big responsibility, heavy weapon. I would have blown Donald Trump or anybody away. I'm not going to kill somebody. I have no intention of killing anybody. I would only do it in self-defense, and I would rather never to have to do that myself. I can tell you this, his shots sucked. However, he did go to a rifle club. I know this from my research, and he sucked. Like, they all said it. He sucked, and he wasn't even good enough to be able to make. Now, why, for such a high-value target, would they have such a loser do the job? The reason why you might do that, this is research. I'm like giving, like, for those who want to do real research, this is the kind of critical thinking and analysis that you need to do. I'm not saying that I've looked into it as deeply as others who are even more serious about this subject, but I know enough to know this. The reason why you might have some loser who obviously had total access. He put a ladder up the back of the building, which is in a prime position for an assassin. Like, there's no way you could case that from the Secret Service point of view and not assess that as a prime place. You had some woods, but that would be a harder shot, and a lot of that was obstructed. But that's clear, unobstructed, elevated position, prime. There was a ladder. The guy climbed up the ladder with a weapon. People in the crowd, we all know this is true, for those literally telling the secret, there's a man up there, it's a man up there. And this loser guy, and we know we have snipers that had line of sight on the shooter, and the moment he fired off, was it 5-6 rounds, killing one and injuring others? I don't know how many of the others may have died yet, or if they're going to live, but the reason why you would have such a ridiculously unqualified shooter is because that guy is not a professional assassin. He wouldn't have a track record that we could prove his absolute ability. Like me, even though I haven't shot for 30 years, I guarantee you, I would. It would be easy.
That kid was on the advert for BlackRock as well. And then people talk about MK Ultra. Could he have been, I'm going down the conspiracy route, but could he have been a plant, the daft-looking, stupid, gimpy kid, to then, who knew he wasn't going to hit the shot, to then getting killed, but somebody else was behind the scenes trying to do the real shot, the real shot, you know? So, like I say, with the assassination attempts, the guys like John Lennon and Gandhi and Malcolm X and Bob Marley, I think
they finished the job pretty well, don't they?
They always spoke about change, and it just, is Donald Trump a good guy trying to create change where his life is at risk, or is it just different wings, same bird kind of mentality of they're all under the same umbrella?
You know, here's the thing. I've become acquainted with a lady named Maria Farmer. She's on record. People can look her up. I literally had a conversation with her the other day. She worked for Jeffrey Epstein. She worked in that New York Park Avenue, that the place that was provided by Les Wexner, who's the real Jeffrey Epstein is just a low-level player. He's nobody in the big picture. That's why we see him. Behind him was a Jewish billionaire named Les Wexner, who has a 300-acre parcel of land out in Ohio. And this lady, Maria, effectively worked under his parent company in the office in New York. And so she was there, and she told me herself personally, we've seen the pictures as well, but she said Donald Trump was regularly there with Jeffrey, and they were very chummy indeed. We've heard Donald Trump talk about his love of women and his locker room talk. Not disputable. This is part of why many hate him, especially like the Trump haters are a special breed. They really think he's like the devil incarnate. I just see him as another traitor. I don't see him as a special level of treason. Really, they're all disgusting to me. They all should be hung according to the law for treason. But she says, and the evidence is all there for those that want to verify. So what are the odds that there isn't videotapes of Donald Trump raping children? Because Maria says, and even while she worked there, like we're not talking about 16, 17. We're talking about 12, 11. We're talking about prepubescent or on the cusp pubescent girls coming in. And it was all under the guise of modeling, right? This was a modeling company. Donald Trump was there, like Prince Andrew and Alan Dershowitz. And I have been trying to warn humanity, if I was the head of the snake, right, if I was the top head honcho, I would not allow anybody to join my club of multi-millionaire billionaires unless I have the goods on them. In other words, unless I own them. If I have a videotape of you raping a child or sticking a dagger in a satanic sacrifice into a young baby boy Christian, is it fair to say I own you? I'm pretty sure I own you.
What do you think of the Epstein stuff? With Bill Clinton in the red dress behind him, and the Prince Andrew stuff, and Prince Andrew meeting him, and I still can't get my head around his interview, Prince Andrews. I still can't get my head around why he went to a park. This is a prince of one of the strongest countries in the world to then go and meeting someone, a known paedophile in a park, knowing fine well there's going to be people taking photos. It just doesn't make sense to me. Someone told me, though, he is not involved. He's just one of those naive fucking party boys who just... Possibly, but surely you've got a team around you to then tell you to stay back from these people. But then again, Jimmy Savile was round these people as well. Surely he would have been vetted. They were looking into him for 50 years of accusations. So it just... Are they all involved in this fucking weird satanic kind of just madness, or are we crazy enough to just be thinking outside the box where... But then again, we could be fucking right as well. And sometimes with the way things are going, I would like to go for the latter. We're kind of on it. But you've got to be careful because we've not got facts and everything to then start blaming everybody and saying he's doing this, she's doing that. You look at the Clintons, what they've done, the emails. Like, it's all weird stuff. Like, what do you think of the Epstein thing?
It's clearly a Mossad. It's a Mossad operation. For those that don't know what Mossad is, that's the equivalent of MI6 for England. It's the equivalent of the CIA for the Americans. It's their top secret security service. And the motto of Mossad is, by way of deception, thou shalt do war. That is their motto. That's not my opinion. That is their motto. So the way that you're able to cajole and control immorality, like there's so many things we can bring into this conversation. Immorality. So for instance, me, I can say, You're not going to buy me with some hot supermodel. You're not going to buy me with a boatload of cash. If you want to offer me money with the conditions, either I agree to the conditions or I don't. Pretty much, there's no condition I'm going to agree to. If you're going to give me money, I'll tell you what I'm going to do with it. Hell, I'll even sign a document saying I'm going to spend it on this, that, and the other. But the way the world works is that those that gravitate towards positions of power don't have morals and ethics. They're the immoral, amoral, narcissist, sociopathic, psychopathic types who also like to dominate and control, which is what really is pedophilia all about. It's obviously, come on, we could all have great sexual relations with beautiful women. Why would you need a child to have sex with, to rape? It's all about domination and control. So this is a narcissistic, sadistic mentality. It's very easy to recruit people into this system under the Luciferian satanic system, because Luciferianism, what is it really? What's its selling point? Freedom. Free, I'm me. Free, I am free, I am me. Everybody loves freedom, right? Well, here's the thing. Freedom, absent of ethics, is exactly what Satan and Lucifer is selling. So, do you want to be free to rape children? Are you a minor attracted person? Or do you want to lower the age of consent? Do you think that pedophiles should be given a slap on the wrist? Or do you think a pedophile who rapes children should be hung from the gallows? Hey man, we fit into one of those two categories. There's not a whole lot of gray area there. I know this much. Do you know where pedophiles find what I would consider rightful justice more than anywhere else? Prison. You don't want to go to prison as a pedophile. Trust me, you do not. You will end up not only dead, but you're going to end up getting some of that justice that you meted out on children, boy. Oh, yeah. Yeah, and there's plenty of story. You people want to get into some gory shit? Oh, yeah. Read about what happens to the pedophile. They actually, isn't it ironic? The prisoners, our convicts, actually have more morality and more sense of justice than we do on the outside. They really do. And I've met such great people in jails and prisons. I feel no shame at all for having spent time. There's a lot of great people in there.
The only thing here in the UK, they're putting the protection wing, though. They're more protected over any prisoner on the planet. When they should be in the wings with the cons. No matter what your crime is. Listen, what it is, you face the consequences. And if you get killed in prison for being a sex case, by all means, these guys are heroes in my eyes.
Well, here, the system on the outside rewards you with promotions and public office, and the legal system will protect you on the outside. And then, if you do end up getting caught, the legal and financial system, us taxpayers, will pay more money to protect you on the inside.
What do you think of Bohemian Grove?
Ah, that's a great question, because when I was being born in 1969, see, they have this thing, this ritual they do. It's called a play, right? It's a play, and it's called the cremation of care. It's kind of a difficult one to figure out, isn't it? Cremation of care? Okay. All right, yeah, I normally don't put cremation and care in the same sentence, but okay, fair enough. When I was being born, which people can look it up, this is why I just turned 55 on July 21st, on the day of the fake moon landing. Let's get into that one too. When I was being born, provably, I've looked it up. It was about midway through the Bohemian Grove get-together they have. For those that don't know, it is males. Only women like Hillary Clinton. I'm so sorry, Hillary. You're not able to. You're not allowed. She's a demon. But you're definitely qualified there, sweetheart. Boy, you got that demon thing down. But I'm sorry, you've got a vagina, so it don't work. So it's only men. Two of the men that were there that year were two one was president, was just about to be president, Nixon. The other one, Reagan, was going to become president in 1980. Wow, I guess it's good for your political career, right? Seems to be pretty good, right? He was governor of California, my home state, where now a child can chemically castrate. Let's get back to that. This cremation of care, which is where Alex Jones very famously managed apparently to get on. Bohemian Grove is about 60 miles away from where I was born, right? So I was born at 9:21 p.m. California time on July 21st, which is nighttime, which it's possible that this ceremony, the cremation of care, this I have not been able to verify. I don't know what day, what time they did this, but I do know my mom was in labor for 17 hours, and I guess I was kind of refusing to come out like I like it in here, I guess. But at 9:21 I was born. It's possible that while I was being born, when they were watching the fake moon landing, literally, in the operating room, that the cremation of care ceremony was taking place. Now, for those that haven't seen the video of Alex Jones, he takes some very grainy video from a distance, and in this cremation of care, there are robed participants at a huge stone statue which is on the land of Moloch. Moloch is a satanic owl-shaped giant statue, which all fits into their ritualistic satanic ritual practice, right? And in that they have music and they have actors playing on the stage, roles, and in that play they have a cremation of care where the character is bound to like a kindling in wood, and they set it alight, and this person is cremated carefully. And in the video we actually hear screaming, and so the debate is like, oh, but it's an act, right? It's a play, right? Didn't Shakespeare say all the world's but a stage, I think? The guy who wrote The Merchant of Venice, the most anti-Semitic, is he? Wait, is Shakespeare an oh my God. Anyway, in this cremation of care that Alex Jones filmed, it's up to people to decide whether this is a play or whether this is real. But in the play, nobody will dispute, and they wouldn't even deny it, that in this play, these actors do a mock sacrifice and burning of somebody alive. We do know, however, that that's kind of something that they like to do within satanic ritual sacrifice. So that's interesting that I may have been born on the very day. So how do I feel about Bohemian Grove? It's real. It's real, and satanic ritual practice exists. In fact, I have this book here. It brings up perfectly. I just managed to buy this book. I said it in the last interview, but Michelle remembers. This is the story about a young lady named Michelle, and her story is she was raised in a satanic cult. If people haven't studied Satanism, then, you know, this all seems fantastical and paranoid and crazy and blah, blah, conspiratorial and all that. All the buzzwords that they've mind-controlled you into dismissing this stuff and remaining cognitively dissonant. To refuse empirical evidence that stares you in the face because of cognitive dissonance. You're incapable of actually assessing things intelligently. This girl was abused and violated and traumatized. You know, there's all sorts of things they do, like putting a child in a coffin with a dead body, closing the coffin and leaving them in there for long periods of time. I mean, come on. We can imagine what kind of traumatic effect this would have. Over years and years and years of being raised this way, not only does it traumatize you, but it makes you like stone, like your heart just atrophies and you don't feel empathy anymore, like, because you've been through so much trauma and abuse it doesn't bother you. In fact, you end up developing a sadistic pleasure in somebody else's pain. And there's so many different reasons to understand this psychologically, like how does this work? And I encourage people to look into trauma-based mind control, MK Ultra. You will learn a lot about the way the world works and how all of us are mind controlled to one degree or another. And to break free from that completely is exactly why I'm such a threat. Not only have I broken free from that crap, but I do have a brain and it does function very well. And I do follow the evidence and I can speak very, very articulately. Satanic ritual sacrifice exists. This poor girl, Michelle, became a satanic priestess. Literally, like they have a church and they have spiritual requirements. They have their God, and their God requires service. And amongst that is sadistic practices such as burning of people alive, of sticking daggers in babies, and casting spells. Again, those that have been secularized or who believe the church is rubbish, so therefore there is no God, and science is the new religion, so people have adopted this perspective that, science can't prove God, so I'm going to go with the science. So that means you inherit an agnostic or atheist.
How long has the Church of Satan been about? How long has Satanism been about? Because Anton Levy, I know he was very outspoken about it, but before he died, he says, "Oh no, what have I done?" Like, how long has this been going? Is this thousands of years we're talking, or is it just recently? Because I know you talk people witchcraft back in the day and witches, and you see the old movies or you see the books, burn them at the stake, and people who were kind of weird. But how long has Satanism been about, and how popular is it? How popular is actually Satanism?
Well,
I think it's getting spoke about more now though than ever. But that's the good thing about social media. A lot of stuff has come into the surface, but I don't know too much about it. But I did watch the interview of that Anton Levy, and it was interesting. But he was a very dark character. The people who kind of follow it, it's not a natural way to look, or just the vibe they kind of put off. It just feels dark. Whatever they're believing in, it just doesn't sit right with me. But how long has it been actually about?
Well, the story really goes back. See, now, because religion and the church has been so thoroughly infiltrated, what people have done is they've confused religion with the idea or understanding of a creator, God, Allah, whatever you want to call it. And that has divorced us of the understanding of the spirit or the soul. It's not that it's almost impossible to reject God in total, to reject like ghosts and spirits and all that, but still believe that you have a spirit, much less that you might have some sort of judgment. Maybe karma exists, right? And if karma does exist, then what comes around goes around, right? But the bottom line is that for those of us who understand that there is a creator, for those of us who understand that the Bible has been twisted and manipulated, one of the things I'd like to talk about is the Schofield Bible as an example, or we could talk about the Talmud. Excuse me, but in answering the question, how old, we really have to go back to the original stories of Abraham and God as a creator who created Adam and Eve and the beginning of man, and then we have Abraham, who was recognized as really the greatest truth teller. And in this period, what the Muslims refer to, and it's very similar within Christianity, you have different levels of incarnation. Man is clay, according to the Bible. We're made of clay, we're made of earth. We die, we go back to the earth, do we not? We have spirits or angels, fairies, in Celtic culture. They are different from us in that they are pure representatives, like angels of God. Like, they don't have free will. They are created by God. They do not manifest in the physical form. We can see them, but they're clearly like translucent, and they have different levels of sort of how much we can see them. Many would deny they exist, but angels serve God. Now, we also have in Islam what's known as the jinn. The jinn are unique, and that's what Satan was, according to the Bible. Satan was not like an angel in that he had many of the qualities of an angel, as in, like, he can morph, this is where we get into, like, David Icke or reptilians and shape-shifting, and they have the ability to sort of change their appearance, so the classic devil, like, with the horns, but this Satan can also manifest as like a man, a human being, not just this horned beast of a man with, da-da-da-da-da. Now, these jinn, they are endowed with some very special abilities. They're like superhuman in their ability to morph into different levels of physical existence. They can fully physically exist, but they can also delve into the spirit realm and different levels in between. Now, this, in the eyes of Satan, who was a favored creation of God, he was very special, and God very much loved Satan, and Satan loved God. But according to the story, Abraham was the greatest of truth tellers. Greater than Satan, greater than anyone. He was the greatest, but he was made of clay. In the eyes of Satan, this man of clay is inferior to me, yet God commanded him to effectively give deference and respect, and effectively bow and respect to Abraham. Satan didn't like this at all. He really felt like it was an insult. And ultimately, he rejected God because he was cocky. I have said this forever. I don't care how good you are, as a fighter, as a lover, as a speaker, whatever. Whatever. Don't get cocky. Don't think that you are so good that you cannot be beaten. And don't let your ego get in the way of the blessings, right? This is like the thing of fame, right? Like, people get famous, right? Now they have access to money. They have access to the opposite sex. They have all these people adoring them. Oh my God. Oh. If you can survive that, that's a great test, because the ego will then get the better of you. It's exactly why this genocide that we see in Gaza is so incredible, because the arrogance of the Jewish state of Israel, it's off the charts. We can say anything we want about Adolf Hitler. You will not find any speeches of Adolf Hitler referring to the Jews as human animals, and that we're going to treat them as such. In fact, what you'll find is the opposite. You're going to find Jewish authors like Kaufman, who wrote Germany Must Perish, and openly called for the total destruction of Germany, the killing of every last man, woman, and child. This is identical to what we've seen with Israeli leaders Smoldrich and whatnot, referring to Amalek. Remember Amalek, which is a biblical story, which effectively means that you kill every man, woman, and child. You kill their cattle. You kill every last, memory of them. We have these stories, and the modern day example is indeed what we're seeing. The Jewish state, and how long Satan, this is going back thousands and thousands and thousands of years. Now, those that believe in science believe the earth is billions of years old. They also believe that a Big Bang, apparently, I don't know what started the Big Bang, but apparently this bang occurred out of nothing, and everything we see exists because of the bang, which created a bunch of stuff. Hey man, you can believe that all you want. And they have science to try and prove that. They do. But you can't really prove God. All we have is stories, books. We have a lot of witnesses. Like, nobody can rightfully deny that Jesus lived. He absolutely lived. So did Muhammad, Prophet Muhammad. And plus many other characters we know. Now, what we believe about them, that's where we get into all sorts of differences. But I would argue that the stories we're talking about are much closer to the beginning of time than the idea that, the biblical stories are 6 million years, and the beginning of, humanity is like, according to anthropology. I've studied anthropology, physical anthropology, Homo habilis, Homo erectus, these are, Africa and, Lucy, there's books about this stuff. I studied that stuff in college in my early 20s.
What do you think of the Vatican?
I think that it's important for people to understand that the church is been perverted massively. It's perverted spirituality, our understanding of God, and the truth that was in the Bible. Now, if we look at the Vatican, I would suggest that one thing that we could look at is a a movie, The Passion of the Christ by
Mel Gibson.
Mel Gibson. Love him. Mel, if you're watching, I want to meet you. And I know you know me. Don't you dare tell me you don't know me, Mel. You know me. That movie reveals the virtues and the beauty of Jesus of Nazareth. It's told in Aramaic. It's done in Aramaic. It's an incredible film, absolutely incredible film. And this is pre-Vatican and Rome and all of that. By the time we get up to Jesus and Rome's place in controlling Jerusalem at that time and so on and so forth, the Roman Empire had expanded, and I think, any reasonable reading of history would say they kind of were stretching too far. So they were having some problems on their perimeter, including the Holy Land. And really who was running the show on many levels was the Pharisees of the day, or who Jesus referred to as those who call themselves, he didn't say Jews because there was no term for Jew, but those who say they are Jews, but they are not. They are the synagogue of Satan, he referred to them as. Those are the ones that were also doing the dirty usury business, charging money at interest. The Vatican comes post crucifixion of Jesus, and there is plenty of evidence to show that actually in many of its stages, the Vatican was actually in line with Jesus's teachings. There have been virtuous popes who actually were the kind of religious leader you'd want. They weren't raping children. They weren't carrying out sins. And they were, in fact, guides towards a genuine spiritual path. But nobody would argue, especially not an Irishman, that the Vatican is anything other than a kid-raping, pedophile-protecting institution that has not 1 ounce of integrity when it comes to spiritual practice. But again, for those that really want to understand, what is the Vatican, it's not just this way. We have to speak in terms of historically. Where is it at now? It's controlled and in line with the satanic agenda. In fact, this begs me pointing out the fact that I am circumcised. Now, many Muslims don't like that I talk about this, or that I have the gall to say what they know in their own mind is what God wants. But I will challenge anyone to really think about this. I would argue that the idea that we should cut off the foreskin, the reason why I bring this up is that the Catholic Church had been infiltrated in the period where I was born, and my Catholic Irish-born grandmother insisted that I was circumcised because that was the position of the Catholic Church at the time. It isn't right now. Catholics are not just required, but back when I was born, unfortunately, that is the way it was. So what I would say on that subject, having now studied 2 books about it, and read a lot more and watched videos, is that the idea that God made us imperfect, and the way that we show our love for him is by mutilating that child and cutting off the most sensitive part of its body, the foreskin, putting it through abject pain, traumatizing it, and burying within its subconscious a distrust of women, because our mothers would have to abandon us. Surely our mother wouldn't do that. But then we look at the actual rabbis that are circumcising their little Jewish babies on, what is it, the 8th day, I believe. And literally, when they cut off the foreskin, the baby's screaming. That the rabbi literally goes down and literally like sucks the blood of the mutilated, bloody penis. I'm not making this up. And so many of these rabbis have herpes. So literally giving herpes to an infant baby that's been mutilated and bloodied and screaming. So I was circumcised, and my position is this: it is beyond arrogant to think, it's human arrogance to think that God made us so imperfect that he wants us or commands us to mutilate our child to make that child perfect. It's just ridiculous, to be honest. If somebody wants to do that as an adult, whatever, man, God gave you free will. I did not have a choice. I can assure you.
What do you think of Antarctica?
I recommend that anybody who wants to know about Antarctica consider a couple of facts. The first one is all of the nations of the world, which actually, wow, that's an interesting one. Every single nation on the planet agrees on what? Is there anything that the whole world agrees on? Holy crap. Surely not. Surely the whole, no way. What? What does every nation in the world agree on? Oh, wait. Antarctica. And what do they agree? They agree that this place, this frozen continent down there at the bottom, is so precious, because they all care about the environment, right? All the nations, they really love they see the earth is like our mother, right? Like, surely they wouldn't rape the mother, right? Like, surely they wouldn't strip mine, chemtrail, frack, cut down the forests or a factory fish, or use pesticides. We love the planet too much. Clearly, we need to protect that thing called Antarctica, right? Which, by the way, has tons of fresh water down there if we wanted it. Like, plenty of real fresh water. Oh, no, they protect the water, so we wouldn't have to worry about drinking the water. No. But they all agree on one thing: Antarctica. That treaty, there's not one nation in the world that says, no, we want to explore Antarctica. We want to, I'm sorry, we want to do more than that. So that's the first thing. If all the nations of the world are agreeing on only one thing, that's at least a unique thing that deserves a bit of investigation. And if you really want to jump right into that rabbit hole, then you go ahead and watch or find the actual log of a man named Admiral Byrd and Operation High Jump. You are going to take a first-class ticket into Alice in Wonderland's rabbit hole there. Big time. What I think about Antarctica is I believe that the story that Admiral Byrd tells is true.
What's that?
So here is the condensed, well, I mean, I'll tell you a version. You know, it won't be the most extensive, but I'll try and do it in a shorter period of time than the actual video. You could watch a video that will give you the reading of his log and the context of how we even know this, because the only reason why we know this is because Admiral Byrd ended up experiencing what I'm going to tell you. And when he went back, he was an admiral, so he was on a mission, and he was the most respected, highly decorated. Like, these awards doesn't even come remotely close to what he got, right? Not even remotely close. When he went back to report to his superiors at the Pentagon, 2 years after World War II, 2 years after we had gone into Germany, and basically taken all of their records and everything, right? Everything that was left, everything that wasn't burned, we took it, or the Soviets took it. So it's ironic, and it's not a coincidence that 2 years after World War II ended, 1945, 2 years after, in 1947, is this Operation High Tower, High Jump. I can't believe I'm forgetting that. Anyway, it's one of those. High Jump, I think, yeah. Anyway, when he went back to his superiors as the top guy in charge of this expedition, he was ordered to keep his mouth shut. Similar to the USS Liberty, by the way, the story I told you earlier. When they went back and told the story about the Israelis, they were all ordered to shut up, and nobody said anything until about roughly 20 years later. God bless him, at big, big risk. But they were all just like, it was too heavy on their conscience. So Admiral Byrd was ordered to say nothing, and he didn't say anything. It's the diary he wrote that was found by his son, if I'm not mistaken, or grandson, about 10 years later, 10 years after his death. So what I'm going to tell you is what is purported to have been written in Admiral Byrd's diary. Now, before I tell you the story, I would only say to the listener that there would be no reason or benefit for this man to write what he's writing as a sort of fiction story, but true. Like either it's fiction and you've got a great creative mind and you really kind of wish you were a fiction writer instead of an admiral, or you're writing it because it's true and this is your way of consoling yourself that you've been silenced and you're not sharing this information, which would completely, radically change the understanding of the world we live in on a multitude of levels. Here's what happened. In 1947, 2 years after World War II, Adolf Hitler, by the way, and the so-called Nazis, the National Socialists, spent a lot of money in expeditions, and this is not disputable, down to Antarctica. This is fact. So, the biggest military expedition in the history of the world was funded, and Admiral Byrd was the top man. There was an aircraft carrier, there were battleships, there were destroyers, there were supply ships, there were aircraft, there was everything required, all of the equipment to map Antarctica. So they went to Antarctica, and we will have records as to like the route they took and so on and so forth. When they got there, the planes that they were using were a special kitted plane that had extra fuel tanks, were bigger than normal planes, therefore heavier, carrying all of this fuel. And in order to even try and get them to be able to take off with all of this weight, the aircraft carrier had to fly directly or travel directly into a headwind. So you've got a wind, it had to be going at like 25 knots or something, right? So you need to go directly into a headwind. You need to be going full throttle against it, which effectively sort of doubles the amount of lift that you would get, because this plane is so weighted down with a short runway that, let's put it this way, if it don't have enough speed when it goes over the end of the your expedition's going to be real short, like that short, right? So this was this was never done, what they were doing. Admiral Byrd was the pilot. He was like Charles Lindbergh, so he was nearly the first one to do the cross-Atlantic flight. Charles Lindbergh did it, but he was an aviator. He was a master of many things, and he was a brilliant man and an honorable man, by all accounts. So they managed to take off with the planes, and they had, I want to say, like 9 planes that took off, and then each one had its own azimuth or its own trajectory, its own area of responsibility. And they all managed to take off, and they all went in their directions. And this is what Admiral Byrd said of his journey, and I'm going to really summarize it here. But as he was traveling, everything is normal as you would expect. You're looking at a solid white landmass with ice, snow. Every 15 minutes he would radio back, and he was doing a log of anything that was notable along the way. And this continued, and they could only go so far before they would, of course, have to double back. Because, if your fuel runs out, now you're going to be stuck in the middle of nowhere in this place where you ain't going to live, right? So everything is going as planned, and every 15 minutes he's radioing back. But after, I forget how long of travel, probably at least 2 or 3 hours or something like this, it was a significant time, he then begins to see discoloration in the snow, which doesn't make sense because this is supposed to be a frozen continent, and, there shouldn't be any organic material, and ice is white. It's just white. That's all there is to it. So he starts to see discoloration. Then he starts to see running water. Then he starts to see greenery. Then he sees what appears to be an elephant. And he's writing all this down in his log. He turns the plane around lower to get a better view, and he then corrects himself. It's a mammoth, a woolly mammoth. And as he's going, he now sees mountains and a forest. So none of this is supposed to be happening at all. I mean, none of this is supposed to be happening. And he's writing this all down. At a certain point, he loses radio contact, the instruments start acting funny, and all of his navigation goes totally haywire. Like everything. His compass heading, his altimeter, all of it. And then he ends up getting a radio signal, but it's not from the command center. It is from an unidentified being who identifies Admiral Byrd by name and tells him that it's okay because his instruments are going awry. He's lost radio contact. It's okay. They know who he is, and he is fine, and they have taken control of the plane. He lost total control of the plane, and that they will be landing him in 6-7 minutes. All of this is, of course, quite extraordinary. He also ends up seeing 2 UFOs that are not using any understood means of propulsion, and the plane that he's in now is no longer running on engine power or anything. In fact, there's no noise. There's no wind. There's no engine noise. The plane is seemingly being carried through the air by some unknown force, and there are 2 flying saucers. They look like saucers, like the classic saucers we've been told about, and they have markings. He writes us all. What is the marking? Well, here we go. That's the big setup for this. I'll get into that, but for those, that's the Mother's Cross. That's got a swastika on it. Do I have a bigger one? I don't know if I have a bigger one here, but that one as well. That's an iron cross there. That's got a swastika. A swastika. Now that's not the one that's from a different period of history. We'll get into that. Anyway, the bottom line is the swastika, for those that don't know, that symbol goes back thousands and thousands of years. It's actually about the unity of life, the connectivity of all life. It's actually a beautiful symbol. So a bit ironic that there's swastikas on these flying saucers, which are using technology that we don't know of, and his vessel is no longer flying on petrol and engine power. In fact, it's silent, and it's being taken by some unseen force. Indeed, these beings flying in these vessels are escorting him, and the vessel then lands, and it's like an elevator shaft. It literally like gets just lowered to the ground, and it connects to the ground and lands with just a little bump. And when they land, this vessel is also landed near, and it opens up, and these beings step out, and Admiral Byrd writes that they are very tall, they are also blonde, and they identify in a few moments as the Ariani. Now, this is all very interesting. Swastikas and Ariani and blonde hair, and they had blue eyes as well. I think Adolf talked about a master race, blonde hair and blue eyes. Now, Adolf did not have blonde hair or blue eyes, and many Germans do not, but some do. But wait, anyway, these individuals identify as Ariani, and they have blue eyes and blonde hair.
Human?
Yes, with human features, and attractive. Apparently, like they weren't like hook-nosed Shylocks. I guess they were good looking. They order him to get out of the plane and to open up its compartment, and he does so. And they then take him in some like device that has no means of propulsion that he can see, and they tell him to leave the co-pilot, so the co-pilot has to stay back while they take Admiral Byrd, and they take this transport device which literally transports them towards a city of crystal. He described it with lighting that literally came from the walls, from no identifiable source. Crystal buildings unlike anything he's ever seen. And when they get to it, they go down into the city, and that is where they take him into these magnificent places, and they explain to him that their civilization is many thousands of years in advance of humanity, and that is why they have all of these different technologies, and that they live within the inner earth here, or part of the earth that we have been told is a ball. I don't know, aliens apparently, according to this crazy Admiral Byrd, who's some fantastical fiction writer. Apparently, whatever the aliens are here. So they explain to him that they have been commanded to bring him to the master. So he gets taken to this amazing building, and he's told to wait. The master will be. He doesn't wait long at all, and then he is summoned into this office. Again, a magnificent place with a big table, at the end of which is clearly a man who is of wisdom. I forget exactly how it describes. We all know when we meet somebody who's got that special kind, exudes something special, like, wow, this is an amazing character. Of slightly more age, but not looking old and frail, just older, wiser. And he is very cordial, and he asks Admiral Byrd to sit down. And effectively what the master says is that Admiral Byrd was brought there because of his implacable character, his integrity, and he was chosen to be given a message to take back to his master. And effectively what the Ariani were wanting to pass on through Admiral Byrd was that the tinkering of atomic bombs is something that has repercussions beyond just the terrestrial world that we know. And it's ironic because the biggest part of the reason why I wore this is because August 6th is coming, Hiroshima. It was that event that motivated the Ariani, according to this understanding of history, to feel compelled to reveal that they are here, because that nuclear technology doesn't just threaten humanity, it threatens them. They don't live millions of light years away. They're here, but maybe across the ice wall that Antarctica might be, much closer than we are led to believe. Well, that would make sense that they would be concerned, because if the aliens all live like millions of light years away, that's what we're told, right? Like the sun is millions of light years away, right? If they're not, that's the closest one. So if they're so far away, do you really think these fireworks we set off over here are going to affect them millions of light years away, I mean, I would have thought it'd be like nothing, right? But if they're that much closer, if maybe we share this space with some other beings that we don't know of yet.
Was this an interview that he done?
It was not an interview. It was literally a sit down with the master so that the master could tell him.
Did he do an interview? Can anybody watch this or read up on this?
Yeah, what you have is the telling of the diary. And so there's different people who've made different views and you'll get different perspectives, but you can actually get the printing of the diary and read it for yourself and then decide for yourself. I see a lot of the pieces of the puzzle being filled in by this. A lot.
What do you think of NASA?
It's 100% a mind operation. It's a lie. The amount of lies coming from NASA is uncountable, not least of which the day that I was born, aside from Bohemian Grove and cremation of care. July 20th, 1969, supposedly we landed on the moon. July 21st, 1969, when I was being born, they were watching the fake moon landing. NASA is literally like a big fraud, the whole thing. I would again put the question to people, like, if we landed on the moon 55 years ago, I'm now 55, why don't we have condos up there by now? I mean, you would have thought with technology, come on, back then, did we have the internet? No. Did we have mobile phones? No. Did we have AI? No. Did we have HD television? No. Why don't we have vessels that can travel to the moon? And if we can travel to the moon in these little tin can things 55 years ago, why would we not have a better technology? By the way, Elon Musk, Mr. SpaceX, okay, the guy who now has a transgender kid and just went and was clapping for Netanyahu at the Congress, he's Mr. Space Traveler. Okay, alrighty then, sure thing. Mr. Smart, right? Yeah, Mr. Tesla, right? Who knows about Tesla, by the way? Man, Elon Musk is not this intelligent genius you all been conned into believing at all. Not at all. Can I debate him? Let me debate him, please. Come on, Elon, let's have a talk, me and you. I'm on your platform. So anyway, this NASA is a big lie. The moon landing is an absolute lie. Anybody can do the research. You'd have to be a really, like, I believe, I'm sure an elementary school kid or a primary school kid could easily destroy the evidence with just a little bit of training in critical thinking and investigation.
Why feed us this information, though, with moon landings and the sun and the earth spins on a ball and you can't leave the earth, you go up, you can't breathe? Like, we genuinely don't know. Why would NASA say the moon, the world is round and the moon landings were real, and when you go up to space you can look down? But again, even the videos now, because there's so many satellites up there, the satellites would have to be spinning with the earth. Like, that just doesn't make sense. Why it's pitch black out in earth, but yet sunlight can hit the earth, and it just... Well, it's just puzzling. Like, can you imagine, like, when you ask the real questions, why are we here? Who brought us here? How long does the earth go? Because people got on planes, or they'll watch videos, or they'll look at photos, and they'll just get their answers of, okay, I believe that. But how the fuck can you believe it if you've never really seen it with your own eyes? You've got to question everything and the lies that's been debunked for hundreds of years, the changing of transcripts, the changing of everything. Because the shit that we're writing now, we're speaking about, can all be deleted in 20, 30 years. People can rewrite history. People can rewrite the future for another 100 years where they can just discredit everybody and everything's forgotten about. Like, it's just crazy. But why the lies? Why would they need to lie about the moon and the sun and the earth?
Yeah, what would be the benefit of perpetuating these things? Okay. Now, there's so many subjects that I really look forward to getting into that are really topical and really important. And I know that my enemies will use the primary answer to that question as a way to try and divert from more agreeable matters that are really important and topical and really critical that we deal with. But the biggest reason why these lies are perpetuated is because it makes us feel very small. It really does. The idea that we're just this little ball that just happens to have this great distance from a big star that allows us this privilege, that is all really just one, like if you look at it mathematically from the science, all of the science agrees, right? If you look at it mathematically, we're like like those that win the lottery. That doesn't even enter the stratosphere of the odds of where we are and the sign that the size that we represent. Like we've all heard the analogy, like a grain of sand, like we're less than the single grain of sand on all of the world's beaches, according to this official version that is perpetuated by NASA, which is a big fraud. So it also is a backdoor way to rubbish the idea of God and Creator. If we believe the science, then the Bible is absolute rubbish. The Bible says 6,000 years. Science says billions of years. If we look at science, we live in a ball. If we look at the Bible, we live in a firmament. It effectively is a backdoor way to reject God in favor of the new God, which is science. Like Dr. Fauci and COVID, right? Science, yeah. So we've relinquished our power to those who have greater knowledge and understanding, right? Because it's all very complicated. And unless you've taken biochemistry and genetics, and then how crazy for you to question us, the science. It makes us feel small. It makes us feel insignificant. It is the backdoor way to rejecting God. And this is why they do it. Now, the evidence to support things that just destroy our accepted understanding of our existence and the origins of our existence, this is where all the trolls come out and start to spout their rubbish. I mean, one of the things, looking at the comments, like I couldn't possibly look at all of the comments that came from our very popularly received conversation last time. But I did notice that of all the things that I said, and I said a lot, did I? Of all the things I said that have not been popular at all, they're only becoming more popular because the understanding is growing, and the things that we completely rubbished not long ago are now becoming somewhat mainstream. But if you said it 20 years ago, which I did, not all of these things, but many of these things, you have to wait for consciousness and human intelligence to catch up. You know, you don't have to be a genius to figure these things out, but their biggest mind control trick is to get us to believe that we have no power. And this whole science gig makes us think that we have no understanding of how to take care of ourselves, that we have to relinquish our power to the science and to the doctors and whatnot. By the way, it's worth noting that I think this ties in well to COVID, the new religion, the new God, science, right? I don't know if you, and you certainly don't have to answer the question because it's personal, but I know this much. There will be plenty of people out there in the audience, plenty of you. I've met many of you, and I know there's lots of them out there who have lost loved ones, and they have connected the dots, and they know that it was the vaccine. It was the vaccine. How many of us know people who were healthy, who took the vaccine, and either are dead or having problems that didn't exist before? How many people out there know that the death rates amongst young people are going up and are higher than any other point in modern history? How many people know that? How many people know now that Dr. Fauci has lied on record in front of the U.S. Congress. How many people know that the World Health Organization is a backdoor way to destroy the sovereignty of nations and assert power from a central system, including the World Health Organization? How many people know somebody they love who has suffered and died because the dots clearly connect, and this one single factor is the unifying factor? They got the jab. They got the jab. I don't know anybody personally who is still swearing, oh, that saved lives. You have got to be a special kind of stupid to believe that you benefited and are alive today because you got a vaccine from the science and the media. Remember, by the way, that we actually had a functioning economy before COVID? Do you not remember? Who among us does not remember the effect this had on our economy? Guess who was least affected by this economic breakdown?
Billionaires.
Yes, I think they were doing quite fine.
It's crazy when you break all that down with the 30% rise in heart attacks. Our age, we're not living as long now. We're kind of at a plateau, and we've got more chronic disease than ever. The majority of the world is overweight, unhealthy, sick, just the way the hierarchies want it. And it's not, I've never met someone who never got the vaccine who regrets it.
That's a good way to put it. Like, damn it, I wish you still can, mate. Don't worry. They still got doses waiting for you. That's a really great way to put it. I hadn't thought. Damn it, I wish I'd gotten that Moderna batch, such and such.
And it's sad as well because a lot of people thought they were doing it for the greater good as well. A lot of people were doing it because they wanted to help people save lives in their mind.
Yes.
And that's why I would never ridicule people, because I could have got it wrong. Just thankfully, it looks like I've got it right. But it's just sad that so many people, the majority, thought they were doing well. But when people got it, people were getting tattoos and shit to saying they got it and putting it on their social medias and their profile photos. Like, people were genuinely behind a movement of destruction, but yet they didn't know. So I understand. I'm not shooting these people down, but it just goes to show how fast the world can unite. Can you imagine doing it when we were going against the evil and trying to make change for the better naturally? It'd be a fucking beautiful world.
Well, that's part of why I'm optimistic. It really is. We're not powerless. We're not. Like, as you know, we were just discussing there, like, they want you to believe that you're small, you're insignificant, you know, that you know, don't worry, it's all being taken care of. Just trust the science, right? Or, you know, your representatives, they're making the hard decisions, you know, right? It's all very complicated. You're too stupid to realize it, mate. Just trust us. Don't worry, we'll take care of you. By the way, go fight that war over there.
What do you think? What do you think of chemtrails? Because 10 years ago, 5 years ago, people would have ridiculed you, called you crazy.
Yeah.
2 or 3 years ago, I think the shift has happened actually with lockdown, with the change in the weather, because no one was out. Or what, I don't know why that was, but Scotland's never seen so much beautiful weather when everybody was in lockdown. And there was no aeroplanes in the sky. There's a connection there. There's got to be a connection there.
A lot of them went up there.
It's crazy. But what do you actually think of chemtrails?
Well, at this point, it's absolutely undeniable. It's 100% undeniable. Again, you got to be a special kind of stupid to deny. It's publicly acknowledged. It's called geoengineering. Obviously, they don't call it chemtrail. We have whistleblowers. Actually, somebody sent me a video just the other day, another one, but there's plenty of them out there. We have pilots who've come out and blown the whistle on this. And furthermore, we have common sense, which kind of used to exist, you know, like literally we used to have what's known as common sense. Those checkerboards that you see in the sky, come on, mate. That is not a freaking cloud. And, you know, with even just a rudimentary amount of investigation, you can see how these chemtrails, which have things like really nanoparticulate matters of metals like strontium and barium and aluminium and all sorts of stuff. And they've denied it all this time. But now the highest levels of government agencies have acknowledged, oh, yeah, we're doing geoengineering to protect against global warming, right? Because the Antarctica's like, it's all going to melt and we're all going to have floods and everything's going to end and you're too stupid to understand. Trust the science, mate, you know? This is the story, man, and they denied it. They lied about it. By the way, Prince, one of my favorite artists of all time, he literally, just before he ended up dead, bit of a coincidence there, he said on record, it was in some talk show about the chemtrails, and I remember this. I remember, because I knew about them, too. I have been studying truth for decades now, so if you really want to seek the truth, it's there, and that doesn't mean, like, I've read a lot of stuff where it was like, what I want has nothing to do with my seeking of truth. That, I do not cloud my investigative skills by wanting something. In fact, if I had some desire, like for instance, the whole swastikas on these UFO things that identify as Ariani and stuff, like, I didn't just like hear about swastika, UFO, Ariani, blue heron. That was just part of a bigger story that was part of the story that I had no idea of. It's amazing what you've done. Have you ever done a jigsaw puzzle? Mm-hmm. I think most of us have, right? The beginning is, it's yeah, it's you know, like, when you start it, man, it's like, oh, why did I start this? You know, but then if you're like me, it's like, damn it, I will get this done. So, you know, you start filling in all these pieces of the puzzle. And it's kind of like a crossword puzzle too, right? There's just some, like, what the hell is that? Like, you can't figure it out. So some pieces of the puzzle are more important than others. I am the kind of guy who has been blessed with a holistic approach. I don't have the mind of the scientists, genuine science, who apply the scientific method. People should look up what is the scientific method. It's a process, and it's good. I'm not the kind of guy that wants to get into the micro detail. I'm not that guy. What I want to do is learn a subject sufficiently where I know the important principles and elements, and I've done enough research to where I don't know all the details, but when I need to, I can defer to the experts who have done that work. My interest is to understand the whole picture. So when you're doing a crossword puzzle, it gets to a point where certain sections, like in a crossword puzzle, if you have like a section that's all dark or something, right? And there's hardly any variation between the pieces. So you don't have the same clues that allow you to like, yeah, that goes there, that goes there. You know, it really takes a lot longer to figure out certain pieces. And some pieces are almost like, what the hell is that? The crossword puzzle analogy is useful, but it's still not as deep as just how deep it is. There are some pieces of the puzzle, like the last place you thought that piece was is indeed where it was. And that really is the perfect segue into World War II. The last place that people would be willing to look is actually where we find the solution, the creation of a better world. It's a perfect opportunity. The most censored film on the planet. Europa, The Last Battle. I swear you will learn more about history in the first hour of this film. You will learn more about history in the first hour of that film than you probably learned in not even a year of university. Like more. It is a fascinating piece of the puzzle. the producer, Tobias, we don't know where this person is. They're very much wherever. You know? And it's like The Greatest Story Never Told, which is a really big title. Europa, The Last Battle, and The Greatest Story Never Told, which will tell you the truth about a man named Adolf Hitler. These are pieces of the puzzle that most people aren't going to look. They're not going to look because they have been so mind-controlled to the point that they know, oh, nothing to see over there. That's exactly where that piece of the puzzle is. It's exactly where you won't look because you know there's nothing to see over there.
With the Olympics just round the corner now, what do you think of the Olympics?
That is perfect, actually. It makes me think of Adolf Hitler. How are you connecting the Olympics and Adolf Hitler, Ken? Oh, let me tell you. There is a man. He won a medal. Like, here's my national defense medal, right? Like, that's national defense. That is, one of the medals. It's like, where is it? The yellow and that one right there. Right? So, this guy, you've probably heard of him. His name is Jesse Owens.
Yeah.
Jesse Owens, he's an Olympian, right? He's one of the greatest Olympians.
Yeah, he was a legend. I watched his documentary, the first podcast, we kind of touched on it. I watched the documentary.
You did?
Of him, yeah, it was unbelievable.
It is, isn't it?
Yeah, absolute legend for what he done, what he achieved, especially at that time as well.
Yeah.
Especially at that time, what he achieved, man. And
really, I mean, this is getting back to like Babe Ruth was the home run hitting champion. It took until the 50s that a guy named Hank Aaron, a black man, shattered the white man's Babe Ruth's record. Black people, without deviating into the modern context of Black Lives Matter, what's behind that, and so on and so forth, there can be no question. I've always, and plus us Irish, I'm sure I said it, we were called the white niggers of Europe. People don't understand the level of racism, and that will bring up issues of multiculturalism and race mixing, and I'd like to get in that later, but let's get back to the Olympics and Jesse Owens and what nobody from a sane perspective would deny, that the slaves that were brought over from Africa, which were owned by Jewish slave ship owners, it was Jewish owners of ships that brought over the black slaves. I'm not saying Christians were not participants in this, they were, but it was the slave owning boat owners and the slave owners of plantations who were disproportionately Jewish. So it's ironic because Judea declared war on Germany, and funny enough, Jesse Owens, as you know, in the documentary, what were the Olympics in 1936?
Germany.
Berlin. Yeah. Berlin. But, the Olympics, they have, different venues for different things. But the big stadium.
You see the footage of Hitler as well in the stadium with Jesse Owens winning.
Yes. And, you might remember from that, how many black athletes came to Germany in that time? It wasn't just Jesse.
Yeah.
There were many others, and they had all been told about this, monster Adolf and how racist, and they were prepared for how they would be treated. Now, keep in mind, in America, they were treated. I'm going to use the word. I'm Mr. Politically Incorrect. The word was nigger, and the way they were treated was as subhumans, very much like we see the Palestinians being treated today. You might as well call the Palestinians niggers in the eyes of the Jewish state, or animals, which is worse, to be called an animal or a nigger. Honestly, that's an interesting question. I hadn't really thought of that. But the bottom line is these black athletes were forewarned, and I'm sure there were, probably in the documentary you would see that. I'll bet they did everything to sort of sequester them or try and keep them away from the Germans for their protection, right? But the bottom line is this. There was an inevitable mixing between the black athletes and the German racist master race, take over the world people. And they all said it. The way they were treated in Germany was unlike anything they experienced ever in America. And they were treated with love, admiration, respect, and the Germans couldn't do enough for them, literally. And when Jesse Owens won his 4 gold medals, which was like crazy. I mean, nobody won 4 gold medals but him. This was an amazing feat. And very famously, do they have the footage of him proceeding past the chancellor?
Mm-hmm.
Wow. So, yeah, when Jesse Owens traveled past the master race, take over the world, Jew-hating, concentration camp, gas chamber, monster, Adolf Hitler, the man stood up and bowed and showed his deference and respect to a black man, Jesse Owens. And when Jesse went back, if you have any details you want to explain about how he ended up dying and his financial situation, please feel free to interject, because I didn't just watch, but I know enough to know. Jesse Owens died as he never got an invitation to Franklin Delano Roosevelt's White House. He was never adorned with any kind of love or respect. To the contrary, he was just a useful pawn in a game that allowed America to say, look at us, rah, rah, look how great we are. And the substance of how we actually treat people. They don't have to be black. I mean, the Irish at that time were treated like absolute dirt.
See the torch and stuff in the Olympics, is that not satanic? Is there not a meaning behind that? Like some with the lighting of the torch, and is that a myth or is there truth behind that?
There's, that is not a subject that I would say that I'm an expert on, but there is a lot of symbolism. I mean, even in my, like the torch, there's the torch is very much a symbol that is used to denote the enlightened ones from the perspective of the dark side. There is much to that, but I think it's one of those subjects that, first off, I don't know enough to be able to say I can give an authoritative view on it all. But clearly, the games, what I can say is that one of the main methods of control of the world is what we would call bread and circuses. So they get all right. We're going to see this right now in France, aren't we? We're really going to. We just had the Euros here in England, so the whole country was watching that. The new religion in England is football, and these guys are making hundreds of thousands of pounds a week to play football. And I know that they all know, like, keep your mouth shut. None of them say anything of any depth at all, even remotely, about anything that matters. The money they get is not just for their athletic skills, it's for their utility in distracting all of us from more important matters in the bread and circuses of football or baseball or tennis or whatever, right? There are far more important things going on in the world. I'm not suggesting that we should abandon all sports and nothing like that, but we should be giving things fair levels of energy and attention. If there's a genocide, then we should be putting tons of energy into that. Imagine if all that passion for football in England were directed at morality or ethics.
But it's to distract. If you're distracted, you're looking at one part of the show instead of looking at the other. You don't question then everything, so everything's a distraction, and you'll tend to see the people who get paid the most as the ones who can distract the most.
Yeah.
Sports stars, actors, because they're kind of caught up in entertainment. You're not really asking, why are we here? What's that about? Why is there a war here? Who sent them for that war? Who's paying for the weapons? Who's funding both sides of wars? Who's controlling this? Why is the food spread? Why is there chemicals in this? Why is there disease? Why is the pharmaceutical industry can control a big part of the population and fund so much that causes people to be sick, but then you'll use their pharmaceutical drugs to then make you even sicker? Like, it's crazy. But again, I just feel a little blessed to then just open my mind to a lot of things. But it can be tiresome because there's just so much that you question everything that you've learned through the years, and to try and unwire it and try and look at it at a different angle. It's mad, but we're doing it, man. What about
By the way, some of the people
Avion.
pointed out the fact that avion spelled backwards is naive. So I'm just giving you that little screenshot that can say, yeah, Ken O'Keefe is definitely naive. Look at he doesn't even know.
A big a big talking subject now is immigration in the UK, France, Ireland, America. And it seems to be causing a lot of hassle. People are now starting to kind of stand up and fight back for people. I don't have any, same as myself. I don't have issues if anybody want a better life or to do good. No matter where you are in the world, you can be wherever you want. But there just seems a lot of kind of child abuse, rapes, and trouble and fights, and young soldier just get stabbed, I think 70 times. It's crazy to what's been happening. I know there's a big rally in England, in London tomorrow, but people now are starting to make a stand, and things just seem to be messy where anybody's just coming over and doing what they want. Criminals, rapists, paedophiles, and not everybody, so I'm not tarring everybody's the same brush, you know. Some people genuinely do want a better life, but it just seems a lot of men. There's no women or children. It just seems men that are coming over and flooding everywhere and causing mayhem. Like, what's your opinion on the immigration thing just now?
Yeah, that's a real hot button issue, and one that really is quite divisive. It doesn't seem to bring us together. If anything, it's driving quite a wedge between us. And it's hard to balance humanity and compassion with the interests of the nation and the sovereignty. And it's all by design. It's all social engineering. As a matter of fact, on that note, where did I put my phone? There it is. As much as I can retain, as much as I'm a good speaker, one thing I can't do is remember a quote like this. So I actually took a picture of it because it deals directly with immigration. And I want to read the quote, and then I'll tell you who's responsible for the quote. Although you'll get a lot from just what this lady says. Here is the quote, and this deals obviously specifically with immigration and refugees. I think there is a resurgence of anti-Semitism because at this point in time, Europe has not yet learned how to be multicultural. And I think we are going to be part of the throes of that transformation, which must take place. Europe is not going to be the monolithic societies they once were in the last century. Jews are going to be at the center of that. It's a huge transformation for Europe to make. They are now going into the multicultural mode, and Jews will be resented because of our leading role. But without that leading role and without that transformation, Europe will not survive. This is Barbara Lerner Spector. Now,
Who's she?
she is a Jewish woman from Sweden. They all have dual nationality, but but I don't know for a fact that she has Israeli citizenship. But if she's a Jew, then she has a right, a birthright, to get her Israeli citizenship. What I do know is that multicultural agenda is a Jewish agenda. That I know. And what she just said there is that Europe will not survive if it doesn't become multicultural. Now, it's a bit ironic because a place that we can truly say that multiculturalism is occurring, although we would want to qualify what that means exactly. Do you remember, I think we all remember, Scandinavia? Would you not say, even though it's cold for a lot of us that like the sun, I really can't think of anybody that wouldn't have liked to at least live in Scandinavia, whether it be Sweden, whether it be Norway, whether
Denmark.
it be Denmark. All of these places historically have been prosperous, safe, culturally unique and fascinating places that you want to visit, places that you wouldn't mind living. Now, today, things have changed. In Sweden, because of unfettered immigration that Barbara Lerner Specter has stated that Europe won't survive without, what we have now is a preponderance, as you say, of immigrants, almost all military-age single men. Almost all of them, like literally. These are largely, they're all dark-skinned. They're not white foreigners. They're dark-skinned. Many of them are Africans or African, black or Negro, whichever you prefer to use, and also Arabs, again. These are single military-aged men who are now in a country with beautiful, blonde, Swedish women. And I did say this, I remember getting into a conversation with some liberal recently, a girl, a woman, and she was really offended by what I said. And what the truth offends you then. Bottom line is this: Sweden is now the rape capital of Europe. And I have looked at the statistics. Over half, and this was even on the BBC, over half of the rapes that are occurring today are of men not born in Sweden, even though they comprise roughly 24, a quarter of the population is committing over half of the rapes. I would say it doesn't require you to be a racial bigot to acknowledge that Sweden is not benefiting from multiculturalism and unfettered immigration. In fact, if we look at the immigration and we look at the hypocrisy, I literally just saw Kamala Harris, who is invariably going, well, let's put it this way. If Donald Trump is alive, I see virtually no chance that he won't be president unless, of course, he truly doesn't do what he's told. But I can't see that. We talked about it earlier. Maria Farmer saw him with Epstein, and he likes young ladies, and I find it impossible to believe there's not videotapes of him raping children. So I think they have him, and he would do the job. But Kamala Harris has said flat out, she was asked in interviews like what she's going to do to deal with like inflation, unfettered immigration. We now, the most realistic statistics say that 4 million have come across the southern border with Mexico into America. We're talking undocumented, illegal immigrants, right? Meanwhile, we have an epidemic of homeless people in America. Los Angeles has like a homeless city. We have homelessness throughout, and there is no social programs for them. If anything, the police are used to kick them from here to there and oftentimes abuse them. They're thrown in jails. Kamala Harris actually had to go to court when she replaced Barbara Boxer in California as a senator because they were using the convicts. We're talking about not like rapists or murderers. We're talking about drug offenders who like were selling like marijuana or something, right? We're not talking about hardened criminals here. Or DUI, third offense, whatever, people who are in prison. America has the largest prison population per capita, blah, blah, blah. And literally they're using them for slave labor. And that slave labor is making a lot of money for those that are taking those backhanders in politics. And she literally had to be taken to court, and the judge ordered her. And she said flat out, look, we can't afford it. We're making a bunch of money off of this, right? So they're using Americans who are born of America as slaves and convicts, and the 4 million that have come across the border. She was asked what she was going to do for the American people, and black people even. She claims to be black. She's not really. She's black American, African American. She's not. Her father is Jamaican, and her mother is Indian. So actually, when she won the senatorial race in California, she was the first Indian senator in America, right? Now she'll be the first black woman, right? So isn't that great the way they get to play all sides here? She literally is a criminal. She's a prostitute as well. I mean, we know this honestly. That for those who want to go look at it, she's literally she was like a proper prostitute. She slept with all really key government officials in California. She came from nothing. She's definitely not the smartest tool, like she's not some genius at all. I don't find her attractive in the least, but apparently they're into that sort of thing. So anyway, it works real well. The policy with immigration, when she was asked what she would do for that, oh my God, she had a whole platform set up for the illegal immigrants, right? What is the law? I mean, whatever we want to say about immigration, there's a process. We can't just open borders. That's a major subject. Open borders? What does that mean? That means the destruction. That's Europa, the last battle. That means when you multiculturalize till the end of time, you're going to lose your culture, man. What is the agenda of those in power with regard to Christians? This all ties in. See how it all ties in. Ukraine is about taking down a Christian nation, Russia, with a leader that is doing his duty to protect Russians in Ukraine, which is part of Russia historically, and also the integrity of Russia, which has NATO pushing right up on its doorstep and presenting a mortal danger to Russia. Putin is building more churches than any other world leader. He's also building more mosques than any other world leader. This is the opposite of what our fake religious leaders do, like, for instance, the Schofield Bible. We'll get into that. Now, getting into immigration, this is a really important issue. Kamala Harris and also Europe, we see the policies. There's a policy here with regard to the Somalians. I know of Somalian gangs that are operating. I know a couple of victims directly of this stuff. You don't want to tangle with them. They're really dangerous. And if they smell money on you, they will come. In London, in central London and other places. I was at a place called the Ned, which is right there in the city of London, and literally ran into a guy who had been slashed from one of these gangs because he had money and they knew it. So you've got these criminal gangs that are being brought in, protected, literally protected by high levels. And I would argue that the whole point is to sow discord and basically division among society, because God forbid Muslims, Christians, agnostics, Hindus, Sikhs, blacks, whites, Indians, Mexicans, we come together, and if we did come together, what will we come together? We really have hardly a chance. The diversity between our views, our morals, our ethics, our spiritual understanding is so great and so wide and so perverted. This is what they want. This is what makes us feel so small. A British nation where you actually have like a connection, a shared culture, shared religious values is a strong nation. It's a unified nation. A multiculturalized nation is a weakened nation. It's a fractured nation. It's a vulnerable nation. I'd say Barbara Lerner Specter was openly declaring a destructive agenda of multicultural, unfettered, open borders replacement theory. We are being replaced, us white folk, with foreign immigrants. And it seems as if we only have two choices. One, we hate the immigrants and we reject them all and we cut ties, which plays into our enemy's hands. Or we play the liberal side where, love and humanity and we, kumbaya, and which plays right into your enemy's hands. What if there's a middle ground? What if there is a sensible way? Now, wearing this uniform, I have to bring up the fact that we have allowed the enemy inside the gate to conduct policies in nations that rightfully allow for the victims of our national policies, i.e., those who come from nations that we have subjected to wars of aggression that have resulted in mass bombing campaigns of their infrastructure, of their transport, of their secure borders, of everything, where they now live in war-torn, destitute, impoverished, broken countries with terrorism rife. And it's all because we allowed our democratically elected representatives to carry out their chicken hawk, cowardly war policies when none of these cunts have been in a war. Which one of these leaders have actually been in a... Oh yeah, there is one. His name is... Oh yeah, Adolf Hitler. And how many peace offerings did Adolf Hitler offer to England? More than people even think. Nothing to see over here. He didn't want war because he's been in a war like me. I have been fighting war because I don't want to go to war, especially halfway around the world. One of my best mates, Marcus, who's in Virginia right now, was in Afghanistan under the war on terror. Stepped on a landmine, legs blown off. Bye-bye. So this is the cost of war. If we invade these nations, what we should be doing is taking control of the finance within our nations. We should not allow this funny money, usury-based, indebted system to bankrupt us so that we always have to hear the politicians go on about, oh, we're going to have to raise taxes, and oh, we're going to have to cut services. No, we could just get rid of all the debt right now, take control of the money, the snake, the head of the snake, and we should pay reparations. All the illegal immigrants, ship them back to their home countries, provide and house them within those countries, work with those nations to get rid of their corrupt leaders, not to interfere, but to facilitate rewards for working with leaders who have any kind of genuine popularity, who represent the will of their people and the protection of their national sovereignty and integrity and resources, so that they will have nations, which I can tell you because I've lived in a refugee camp. Of all the white American Irish guests you've had, I know for a fact I'm the only one who's lived in a refugee camp as an asylum seeker. 100% guaranteed. And having lived in a refugee camp with Africans who come from places like Sierra Leone, which is beyond dangerous. It is beyond what people can imagine. There's child soldiers that are being, like, literally pulled in against their will, taken through sadistic processes to where they are mutilating bodies and becoming, like, enjoying this stuff. So all of them, all of these African refugees that I met, I swear to God, when I talk to them about their nation and, you know, how they feel about it and all this, I can honestly say they all miss their families. They all would prefer to be there, but because they are military-age men, there is an incentive for them to leave, because in many of these countries, like Ukraine, as an example, do you know how many soldiers we've got in Ukraine that are telling stories to the Russians and everything about how they have been yanked off the street against their will and forced with inferior training to go fight in the war? The same thing exists in Africa and other parts of the world, literally. So you can't blame. I mean, one of the gifts I've had in my life is to be able to put myself in the position of the other, right? Imagine how you would feel. All right, a lot of your family's dead. You have no land. You may be separated. There's zero job opportunities, and there's warring tribal groups. And if they see you, they are going to yank you, and you are going to do their bidding. And if you don't do their bidding, then you're either going to get beaten and tortured or killed So what would you choose to do that, or would you choose to leave if you could?
Yeah, leave.
Yeah. So if we're being honest, those of us, the white or the native populations of Europe who hate all the immigrants and whatnot, I understand your position. I'm not suggesting that you are, wrong in your anger at what is happening, but understand who is the root cause of this. Barbara Lerner Specter and a Jewish Kalergi plan replacement theory agenda. Europa, The Last Battle would be a good film to watch on that. But there's other stuff. Now, if we're only dealing with the circumstance, the result, but not dealing with the root, then we're easily played. We're chumps. Useful idiots. Which, by the way, funny enough, is what Netanyahu called the protesters outside the Congress. I'd like to talk about him in a minute, but the immigrants who are coming here, many of them are just nasty. They really are. They really are, and they should be dealt with properly. But they're not all like this at all. A lot of them are good people, and they're really just doing the best. They're making the best of a bad situation. They're their own worst they're their own worst enemy in many ways. But a lot of them are really good people, and the white people or the native population, what we call British or the Irish, we got to mention the Irish. They're being genocided right now. The Irish are absolutely being genocided right now. Even Conor McGregor just came out now. I have my own problems with Conor McGregor, but I also remember the Conor that we all loved, because when he did come up from Crumlin in Dublin, which is like a shithole of Dublin and a very tough place, in a really ruthless and unforgiving Ireland. The Irish, they don't call us the fighting Irish for nothing. I mean, no doubt about it. We're up for a scrap. We're great fun, but we're also your worst fucking nightmare if you really want to fight with us. Conor had it rough, and I would like to give credit to Conor in this regard. He's done so many things that just really do shame to Ireland, but he's definitely right on this one. He's come out and called out the Irish government for the traitors they are. The unfettered immigration in line with Barbara Lerner Specter's, Jewish Kalergi plan replacement theory is, it's the death of us. It will be the death of us. It will be the destruction of the Irish people. Ireland has like 5-6 million people. If they let 4 million immigrants in Ireland, I don't know what the numbers are, like 4 million in America, but that's 300 plus million people, right? That's a massive negative blow. It's a massive destructive blow to America. But the amount of immigrants, percentage-wise, that are being brought into Ireland, which will be given full government support, housing, living expenses, things that the Irish people, proper Irish, with an Irish accent and all, unlike me, proper Irish are leaving because they can't afford it. Ireland is not cheap. It's cheaper for the illegal immigrant with the full support of the government. That's what Conor McGregor just called out. So, God bless him for that.
See, for the Hitler thing as well, so Hitler invaded other countries and killed people, so why did they invade then? Because I know you've kind of went the opposite with the first podcast, and listen, Joe Rogan spoke out about Hitler now. He's kind of changed when he done the speeches and put it in English. Candace Owens have kind of spoke about it, and people would have thought you were crazy because history tells us Hitler was a bad man. Now, I'm not educated enough on it, and I would question it if someone says, well, wait a minute, he done X, Y, and Z, the same as Putin. When I watched his interview and he says, well, there's a peace agreement for Ukraine, I don't want war, but America told Ukraine not to sign it. And yet Putin is the bad man. So why did Hitler invade then? Okay,
that's a great question. And I'm really happy I get to answer it. And I wouldn't mind pouring a beer for this one. And I really, it's in my bag there, I think. Or do you have one? No, in that black bag right there, sorry. And since the camera's rolling, so remember I was talking about the Nuremberg tribunals, right? And of all the things we're told, come on, like 6 million gas chambers, all of that, right? Cheers, mate. Thank you very much. Of all the things that Adolf Hitler is accused of, what Nuremberg, which was really just a horrible Soviet-run thing, but nonetheless, what they said, the worst crime that he committed was war of aggression, right? So, unlawfully invading another country, right? Now, keep in mind, like, even if he invaded, where did he invade? Okay, Austria, Poland. He went into Czechoslovakia.
Tried to do Russia, but he didn't he?
And he went into Russia. Okay, so let's and he also went into France. Okay, now the worst crime, war of aggression. Let's just check off one real quick. Austria, he was given a ticker tape parade and loved and adored. All right, so no one's going to say the Austrians were unhappy about that invasion. All right, and that was the biggest chunk right there. If you know anything about history, you need to understand that historic Germania, Germany has not had as fixed a borders as some of the, like England as an example, it's an island. Ireland, it's an island. Now, while pieces of it have been taken, but no one would dispute that Ireland, including the north of Ireland, to all you who say north, no, don't say, no, that's the north of Ireland. So anyway, Poland, the beginning of World War II. Context is important. So Adolf Hitler invaded, we are told, right? And this is the reason why. For those that want to watch a film such as The Greatest Story Never Told, why is The Greatest Story Never Told so censored? Because you will learn a version of history that is going to make what all of these pundits and all of these prostitutes posing as journalists, you're going to realize they're lying to you. And they need you to be fooled by that lie. What we need to understand about Poland is that during World War I, which is a whole lecture in itself, the war that Adolf Hitler fought in, the war that he was injured 3 times, including gassed by the British, the good guys. He was blinded. He fought valiantly. This is why he was against war. He's been in a war. He's been in the trenches. By the way, I read stories. I have to say this right now. He was such a beautiful man. Yes, I said that. He had a dog. While he was in the trenches, he had a dog, and he came across this dog when it was chasing a rat that had come into the trenches. Now, rats are a problem. Like, you really don't want to share space. For those of you that have never lived with rats, I can assure you, you would rather not live with them. Unless they're the domesticated rats that you have as a pet, which I had as a kid. That's a different story. The rats that are crawling around in your walls and in your attic and like whatnot. I had lived in a place where rats were like run over you in the night, like, and they would make noise, so much noise that it would keep you awake. Like, trust me, you don't want them. So this rat in the trenches was being chased by a dog. And anyway, the Adolf actually ended up grabbing the dog to try and to show it that he wanted to, like, you know, show it some love and like help it out, but this dog did not know the German troops because the Germans had less food than the British troops. So, you know, Adolf's talking German, but the dog only knows English, right? And it gets favor from the English folk, right? So the dog is not being friendly to the Germans because he doesn't know the Germans. Plus, they ain't giving him any food. But Adolf wanted to show that he was going to treat it right. So he ended up grabbing the dog, and the dog was like biting him and trying to do all this. And he managed to like eventually calm it down. And this dog ended up becoming Adolf's best friend. In fact, even his colleagues, they all loved the dog. None of them cared about any dogs, and they didn't have enough food themselves, and life was utter hell, and they're living in mud and trenches, and they're being shot at. But he ends up adopting this dog, which you don't do, right? Like, this doesn't happen. And he did that, and the dog and him became inseparable, and the dog had an amazing relationship. And the extracts of the book of eyewitnesses to this and how Adolf recounted this dog were just incredible. The dog became so popular that people wanted to buy the dog off of him. They all loved the dog. And when Adolf had to go on a mission or something, he would only leave the dog with his most trusted comrades and so on and so forth. And then one of the people who lived in the area where they were fighting, who had money, it was an innkeeper, offered to pay him like a lot of money, like a serious amount of money at the time. And Adolf said, if you paid me basically 1,000 times that, I wouldn't give up this dog, right? Anyway, it ended up happening that he went on a mission, and he knew later that it was this man who ended up somehow either bribing or stealing the dog, and he lost the dog and how it hurt him till the end of days. So there's a little story about the humanity within Adolf before I get into his invasion of Poland, all right? Just to give you a little clue. I'm a man who's had connections with animals that are just incredible, absolutely incredible, and I don't see them as other people do them at all. I see them as living creatures, as you know, created by God and meant to be looked after and not abused and not exploited and certainly not profiteered from. That's why I'm vegetarian. So, and so was he. Anyway, and another story behind that too. Poland in World War I was parceled off. Poland is part of Germany, of historic Germany. This is not disputable. When they lost World War I, amongst the many things that happened under the Weimar Republic, which was Jewish-controlled bankers and corrupt politicians owned by the Jewish bankers that took control of Germany when the Kaiser abdicated, which is what Adolf and the Germans refer to as the Great Stab in the Back. So they all fought this brutal war. Many were lost, many were dismembered, and at the end of it all, their whole nation was submitted to the foreign powers, and specifically the Jewish banksters. These are facts. So what was part of Germany then became part of Poland. That's Danzig, and this part of Germany that was critical because it had a natural harbor up in the North Sea, up in towards Scandinavia. It connected. It was a trade route, and that was parceled off for that reason to Poland, which effectively was Soviet Union. It was under Soviet communist control. This is why they lost it. Now, Germans, when this land was taken over, there were Germans living there. This would be similar to, say, the Golan Heights in Syria today. It was illegal, immoral, and what ended up happening in the leading up to World War II was that masses of Germans who lived in now Poland, especially around Danzig, were being slaughtered. And I'm talking like Bolshevik, the things that Candace Owen is talking about this now. If you want to understand the most dark period of history that I am aware of, and I've studied history extensively, Bolshevik, the Bolsheviks. So the worst of the worst, the most satanic, sadistic, evil, mutilating, torture is an art form. We're talking, I believe I might have mentioned this in the 4.5-hour interview, so forgive me if I repeat myself, but one of the tortures that stands out was when they wanted you dead, they didn't just want to like kill you. They wanted to have fun with it. So one of the things that could be done is they would cut open your belly and pull out your intestine, nail it to a tree, and then whip you and beat you so that you'd have to run around the tree and your innards would be pulled out until the point all of your innards have pulled out, and eventually that yanks off and you die a most horrendous death. while they all laugh. This is the kind of things that was being done to the Germans in now Poland, like Danzig. And Adolf Hitler, on record, this is indisputable. David Irving, if you're British and you care anything about real history, then I would encourage you to read. I just bought a David Irving book. They're not so cheap, but nonetheless, they do exist. You could find out what the evidence actually says about this. Now, Adolf Hitler, understanding the game. Imagine this. If you're a leader, yeah, like Putin today, you've got people in Ukraine, in the Donbass. Historically, that's part of Russia, yeah? They are of Russian heritage. They speak Russian. The Ukrainian laws under Zelensky make it a crime to speak Russian. It's persecuting the Russians. And they're doing ungodly things to the Russians. You're a leader. What do you do? What do you do?
Fight back.
Yeah, I mean, or would you do the practical thing and just like, oh, so sorry, mate. So Adolf Hitler basically was in the same position that Putin is today. Even worse. Even worse. What was the population? I want to say 100 or 200,000 Germans or something like that. It was a significant number. I'm a little bad on numbers, but it was a major number. Before he invaded, he had offered multiple ways, peace offerings of like a peaceful, amicable, just resolution that would prevent a war. Over and over and over. If anything, he was tempting. In fact, many Germans were really upset that he was allowing this because they had relatives that were there who were dying, and they were being mutilated, and they were being tortured, and they were being slaughtered horrendously. Tens of thousands were murdered before he, quote, invaded on the back of, I forget how many, but I believe over a dozen, like, let's sit at the table, let's work this out, let's do something. Like even now in the modern context, the hostages we hear about from Israel, right? They actually got the biggest dose of hostages that they got out was back in November when Hamas dealt with mediaries with Israel and they worked out a deal and they released a number of hostages, mostly old and women and children. And some Palestinians were released. Now they've taken like tens of thousands of prisoners since, so it's really a non-winner for the Palestinians. But my point is there was negotiations that worked out some sort of partial remedy. Adolf Hitler did all of that, and it went nowhere. And if you look at the actual history, again, David Irving articulates this. Churchill, who was by that time the drunkard, Jewish-controlled agent that he certainly was during the whole period of World War II. Rejected everything, completely rejected everything. Hitler was put into a position of either completely just doing the opposite of what you said, you'd fight back, right? You'd do something. Or you'd have to deal with like just abandoning your own people. Now, I'm a Marine, right? One of the things we learned, never leave a man behind. This is part of why you might kill yourself, right? If you had an injured man on the ground in a dangerous area and he was shouting or help, calling for help, or even not calling for help, but he's there, he's still alive. And rather than take the risk of run back to grab him and pull him out, you just turned coat and ran off like a coward. I don't know, it doesn't take a genius to figure out. You wouldn't feel good about it, would you? You wouldn't feel good. So Adolf Hitler didn't invade Poland. The truth of the matter is he did what is required of any leader, any noble leader. And the instant he did that, let me give you another historic example. The war that I was in, where I earned these awards. Look at that. We liberated Kuwait. It looks like the Palestinian flag there. It's the same colors, right? It's very much similar. Not as noble in the context that I did it, but during the first Gulf War, just a bit of history and context here, Iraq was run by Saddam Hussein, was a CIA asset, and came from the Ba'ath Party, and literally was definitely brutal, and definitely backed by U.S. interests, including Jewish interests. And he came to power, and he got all the favor of America and Britain, so he was a favored nation trading partner. We offered trade deals that involved economic, agricultural, and military support. We provided him with weapons, including chemical and biological weapons. America did that. And we provided him political cover, said he was an agreeable leader and that we had good relations and so on. And then we gave him the order to invade Iran. And that was what's called the Iran-Iraq War. Now, that's the only war Iran has had in 700 plus years. They call that the imposed war. So they've never had a war in 700 years. Never have they invaded anybody. Never have they gone to war, except for that one war in which they were invaded by Saddam Hussein, who was working for Western powers, and he was armed, and he invaded. Iran lost 1 million people. Young people who weren't of age were lying about their age so they could go and fight and defend Iran. I've met survivors of the chemical attacks in Iran, so on and so forth. So Saddam Hussein did his job, and after that war, our little satellite state, Kuwait, who I liberated, was doing what's called slant drilling, and this little state was created by the Sykes-Picot Agreement, which is a British interest. And that was the creation of this little puppet state, a little petro state, run by us foreign colonial powers to basically give us cheap oil and just screw over their own people, right? And also take a big slice of land. So this is where it's similar to Poland and Danzig, right? That is actually Iraq. If we look at the actual history of Iraq, that's part of Iraq. Kuwait is part of Iraq. But previous to Saddam, that was sliced off in Sykes-Picot, which goes back to the early 1900s. Anyway, after Saddam did his great job killing 1 million Iranians, he then, and this is where I came into play because I joined the Marines in 1989. So within a year, I was going to a war, and that war was the Iran, the first Gulf War. And here's what happened. Saddam had great relations with America. He was our boy. He just did a great job killing Iranians, which, by the way, who are they blaming the assassination attempt on Trump? Oh, Iran. Oh, that's what Netanyahu just said. Iran, oh, really? Oh, Iran's the threat. Oh, that's it. Yeah, okay. So Israel still seems to have a bit of a problem with Iran, right? Yeah, okay. So Saddam Hussein, our boy, just killed 1 million Iranians, right? So he thought he was in good favor, right? He thought he was looking good. Man, I just did my job. Cool, man. I'm going to get some rewards for this. So he's like, through his envoys saying, hey, the Kuwaitis are stealing my oil and shit. And like, I want to go take care of it. And they said, okay, well, hold on. Let us send our person so you can talk in person. So they sent an envoy, the highest envoy, April Glaspie. And they met, and Saddam explained his position, and April Glaspie said, when he asked for, consent to go take care of business, April Glaspie gave him the green light. Yeah, it's a regional dispute. They even said it publicly. America said, it's a regional dispute. We won't interfere. Da-da-da-da. The moment that Saddam Hussein invaded Kuwait, right? He invaded, just like Hitler invaded Poland, right? Yep, keyword there, invasion. The moment he invaded, he became the new Hitler. Oh, he's been torturing everybody. He gassed the Kurds. He's like, the moment he did. So Saddam Hussein was betrayed badly. That's the war that I was in, which I got that medal for. And Southwest Service, Southwest Asia Service, and combat action and all that. So my point is, all the world is a stage, and the only winners in war are the banksters. And who are the banksters? Oh, that'd be anti-Semitic, so I can't say that, right? So he didn't invade Poland. When we get towards Czechoslovakia and France had parceled off after World War One. They got the Rhine, which is again part of Germany, and it has some resources that are really valuable. So the French took their little piece of the pie, right? So when Adolf invaded France, he didn't drop one bomb on Paris. Think of that. Not one bomb was dropped. And basically they walked on in. And by the way, he got back in the Louvre, or one of their buildings, all the records of secret societies and everything. They took them back to Germany, which was like a big hit. That was one of the reasons why Judea declared war. Like they really wanted to get that stuff back.
The Candace Owens stuff, though, now, she's very outspoken. And no matter if you agree with her or not,
Christian
at least she's
genocide.
got the balls to speak her mind. And that takes courage, especially going against the grain. And yeah, fair play to the woman for, like I say, speaking the way she sees the world. And what's your opinion on Candace?
God bless her, man. God bless her. She's actually using my talking points and doesn't say it with the same kind of gusto that I say it. But she's a Christian, first off. I mean, I've talked a lot today about spirituality and God. She's actually a Catholic, which I'm a Catholic-born son. And what she knows is what I know. There's a God. There's a God. And if we really start to use this brain and our heart and our humanity and our love to really exercise it in a way that's within God's will and what God would like of us, like when I pray, and when I live, I literally understand that God is a real entity, and I want God to smile, man. I want to make God happy. And I do all sorts of little things that, I'm not going to brag about or even talk about, but they're little things, and even the little things, you don't need to do like big, huge things, like world-changing things. She knows what I know, and I've never been afraid of God or his judgment, because I'm just not, like, I'm not saying I'm not capable of sin, but it holds no appeal to me. I know that the real pleasures of life are around what we can give, not what we can take. Not by taking, like, advantage of our position or the blessings we've been given to use and exploit others. That happiness does not lie in this place. Material wealth, sure. I'd be very valuable to my enemies, They would have been wise to hire me if they could have got me. But Candace Owens is speaking about the Christian genocide and pointing out some really important facts. All we ever hear about is 6 million and the Holocaust. Now, in the last interview you did, I could do a 2.0 on that. I was on a roll about, hypocrisy and war and all that, and I said you can take your 6 million gas chamber shit and shove it up your fucking ass. That's like going viral right now, and so obviously Candace Owens is not going to express it like that, but she's doing it in a very civilized way. She's basically saying you can take your like penultimate supreme like crime of all time and shove it where the sun don't shine in her own way, because it's a lie. First off, she's not saying that. I'm saying that 100%. 6 million is a lie. For those that want to question that, look at the census reports. They exist. The census reports of how many Jews were in all of Europe at the time, all of Europe, not just Germany was even less. There wasn't 6 million in all of Germany, according to all the data we have that exists. There weren't. However, if you look at the numbers before, during, and after, the total number of Jews that are living in Europe is virtually unchanged. Now, you know what that would be consistent with? Now, there's different figures, and I know people who have hard evidence, including David Irving, that would show that the real death count, you know who starved by the millions? Who died by the millions? Germans. Definitely. Not Jews, I'm talking Germans, like Germans. The actual numbers of Jews that died during World War II, and there are credible numbers that actually would make the number less than what I'm going to cite right here. I'll use this as a safe number. The best figures we have for death count would be the Red Cross, for various reasons. Like if you're going to look at death counts in war, one side's going to play the numbers up, one side's going to play the numbers down. I mean, we can all, like America, when we talk about Hiroshima, right? And we talk about how that's a Christian Catholic place, by the way. Of all the nations, of all the cities in Japan, Hiroshima is Catholic. That's why there's the iconic church that's still partially standing. Well, everything else is gone. That's why they targeted that place as a war against Christianity for a reason. Anyway, where was I before that with Candace? Sorry.
Yeah, you were just talking about the stuff that she says, and there wasn't the Christian side of things. The numbers weren't as high.
So the 6 million figure, if we let's just do the math here. If there were say 12 million, which there weren't, there wasn't. Let's just say there were 6 million. Okay, let's say there were 6 million. I'm telling you, there wasn't even 6 million, but let's just accept that there were 6 million. Okay. In Europe, and that's being generous again, we're talking all of Europe. Or let's just say there were 6 million in Europe, but in Germany, yeah? So if 6 million were killed, well, then the census reports would reflect that, right? So if we had 6 million, then after the war in Europe, there'd be 0, right? If we do this in the simplest way, this shows how pathetically mind-controlled we are. That because it's just being repeated over and 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 over, it must be true. It's not true. It's a lie, is what it is. The census reports and also the death count of the Red Cross is about 225,000 against millions of Germans.
Why lie about it, though?
Well, there's more than one reason. More than one reason. The biggest reason is the chosen ones, they are chosen according to their belief system. We didn't talk about the Talmud. We can talk about that. Why would they lie about them being the supreme victim? Why? Because if they are the supreme victim, and this is the supreme crime, then we, the Goyim, owe them. We owe them, don't we? If no one else has been victimized like them, then maybe that would explain why Germany is paying reparations to this day to Holocaust survivors. Fact. That's absolute fact. Maybe that would explain why the creation of the Jewish state of Israel had to happen, because they were the supreme victim, yeah? Right? I mean, if we committed this horrendous crime, we need to create a state that will allow the Jews to be safe, right? Right? Because they're like the ultimate victim, right? So there's another reason. That's the big reason. And the fact that the 6 million figure has been used over and over and over and over again, way before the so-called Holocaust. And the fact that Theodor Herzl, the creator of Zionism, who talked about 2 world wars and the creation of a Jewish ethno-state, the fact that the Rothschilds were buying up all of Jerusalem in the early 1800s. We have deeds, land transfers to prove what I am saying, but who's telling us our history. Oh, yeah. They are. Who controls the media? Oh, yeah, they do. Who controls Hollywood? Oh, yeah, they do. Who controls the politicians? Jeffrey Epstein, Donald Trump, honey trap, pedophilia, tapes of pathetic, debased, immoral politicians. The reason why the Jewish state of Israel was created was because it was a plan that goes back, way back, at least to the mid-18th century, but really before. And in order to achieve this goal of displacing and genociding and doing a Nakba, a great disaster upon the Palestinian people who show and display more humanity than any other group of people on this planet. God bless the Palestinians. God bless you. Is because they needed to create a lie as big as the Holocaust, the 6 million gas chambers. And I think at this point it would be relevant to note that for those that want to know history, I woke up to this issue because of a Jewish kid named David Cole. For those of you watching this interview now, and you think what I'm saying is crazy, or you think I'm a, quote, anti-Semite, or you believe what you've been told, go look up David Cole, Auschwitz. This Jewish kid with his yarmulke did a private tour and thoroughly destroyed the idea of a gas chamber. But you will still hear to this day, if I'm right, think about this. This alone is enough proof for people to realize not only are you being lied to, but all of those in power are uniformly repeating this lie. There is zero possibility of an extermination by any means, much less gas chambers. And the evidence to prove what I'm saying is indisputable, irrefutable, self-evident. But when you have a mind-controlled population that is being bombarded with lie after lie after lie, reinforced by more and more lies, with all of the politicians and historians and pundits repeating the lie, then it must be true. No. It is a lie, and the facts do not bear it out. Now, the only reason, do I, by the way, on this note, what would I offer as a way to deal with this lie, a genocide of my family in Palestine, in Gaza? The law. And for the law to be carried out, we need evidence. And if evidence points to the directors of all the pharmaceutical industries and the science telling us COVID was a lie, and that we were injected with experimental drugs that alter our DNA and are killing people, including young people, at unprecedented rates and creating myocarditis and weakened immune systems and cancer going through the roof and all of these other diseases, if that would be true, if that were provable, well, what would be the legal consequence of such a thing? Would that not qualify as a crime against humanity? This is what I'm calling for. Lawful prosecutions, evidence-based, beyond a reasonable doubt, and a consequence for the worst of crimes, including war crimes and crimes against humanity, such as the use of depleted uranium, which my birth nation, I just found pictures of me in the highway of death. We used depleted uranium, which caused birth defects. When I was in southern Iraq in 2003, when I was doing the Human Shield action trying to stop the invasion, I actually went into the Children's Hospital and the General Hospital in Basra in southern Iraq, where I looked at photo albums this thick. There was like 4 or 5 photo albums, and I literally looked at every picture. Oh my God. picture after picture after picture after picture of babies that were born to Iraqi women that lived in a place proven indisputably to be hit by a weapon known as depleted uranium, which is, in fact, nuclear waste. So when we produce nuclear power with uranium, enriched uranium, it becomes depleted uranium. That depleted uranium is one of the most dense, heavy, hard metals, which is also radioactive. They take the depleted uranium, which is a disposal problem. It costs a lot to store this stuff and secure it and try and protect against it irradiating things around it, right? Here's some genius for you. How about we take this radioactive nuclear waste, which is so hard and dense that it actually works really well for armor piercing. So here's what we'll do. We'll make it into rounds that we can affix to rockets, tank shells, mortars, right? And we'll be able to fire these at tanks and other weapons because we like war. Oh, we hate war. Oh, no, we love war. And what it does is it pierces the armor of tanks, and it will kill and destroy the tank. So it'll be a great weapon. So we take our disposal problem, which costs us a bunch of money, and instead we then break down the metal, make it into weapons, and then sell it. So it's not only costing us money, we're making money, and at the same time we take care of our disposal problem. So when we have a war, we'll just go ahead and fire that shit everywhere, and then it'll hit the tanks. And then when it hits the tanks, it creates this intense heat, and you get these little particulates, little pieces of inhalable metals, which the local population breathes, like the ladies and the men. So they're breathing in radioactive particulate matter, similar to the metallic particulate matter from chemtrails, but worse. And when they do that, and they get pregnant, these babies are irradiated, and it tinkers with their DNA while they're being formed, and that's why you get these deformed babies, which filled these photo album after photo album after photo album. I burned my U.S. passport in Amsterdam, and I held up pictures of these babies and charged the United States with crimes against humanity for this 22 years ago.
What's all this stuff you brought with you today? What's this here?
If I may, I will get into that. But my point is, these babies, they look like mutants. They don't look human. They're completely deformed. What it does to a man or a woman. These women, by the way, their lives are destroyed, absolutely destroyed. If that came out of your body, what are the chances you're going to try again? There's one thing to have a stillborn baby, but to have this mutant come out of you, which you love and yet you're horrified by, imagine what it does. So actually, let's talk about mothers. We were just talking about mothers. This is a beautiful thing. The police have my original one. And you know what? I refuse to, I love this. And I can hand it to you. You could show it if you would, please. That is what's known as the Mother's Cross. So this is an Iron Cross, and that is a German award. I already showed this is a National Service Medal, so I got that for going off to war. So soldiers, or in my case, Marines, we can win these national awards for service. This was awarded to the mothers in Germany by Adolf Hitler under the National Socialist government. So this was awarded, to explain it, Germans, there were 6 million 6 million unemployed when Adolf Hitler took power in 1933. 6 million unemployed. There was 2 million homeless. The money was worth nothing. In order to rebuild the country, which was absolutely thoroughly destroyed, he instituted a policy of creating jobs and creating their own money based on no usury. He outlawed usury. Jesus and Adolf have something very much in common here. And he created jobs based on the creation of money for labor. So labor has value, right? Would you not say if you hire somebody to do a job for you that that labor has value?
Yeah.
And would you not say that they deserve some pay for that?
Yes.
And what is this? What are our pounds? What is backing that pound right there? What's the value of that actual pound? Is there anything behind that pound, or is it just something that one institution, the Bank of England, has a monopoly on, and they charge us interest on that? So Adolf ended that, and he issued labor certificates, because we can all agree that labor has value. That has actual intrinsic value. So the jobs that were created in Germany eliminated unemployment, and they built something called the Autobahn. During that process, the Autobahn was going through areas of Germany previously inaccessible, like ridiculously difficult, no reasonable transport, and it basically just really limited what Germany was capable of. So the Autobahn was created, and the jobs that were created were very tough jobs. You had to go to these remote areas and ultimately be away from your family and so on and so forth. So what Adolf did was he created communities along the way where the families could come, big enough with like shopping, resources, everything available, so that the workers could go and work hard, the men, and then at the end of the day, they wouldn't have to stay in some camp alone. They'd have their family there with them. But he wanted to house everybody, and that's part of why he built the Autobahn. Also, the Volkswagen, the most incredible car ever created. If you had a 1933, or I don't know the first year that it came out, but Volkswagen, dude, if you had one of those Cherry, that's worth bank, dude. You'd have money for that thing. The Mother's Cross was created to award the mother in the same way that a military man would get an award, and there's different levels. This is a gold Mother's Cross. Now, let me explain that. Jobs were created, income was coming in, and if you wanted to own a home in Germany, then you had to do a process. Here's the process. You get married. You had to get married. This was love of the family. How much does our government love family values today, would you say?
In the UK?
Yeah.
Not much.
No. Do you think maybe we kind of have, we take care of our gay people? Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. How about transgenders? We're looking after them. Okay. That's great. We're all equal, right? We're all equal. Yeah. Well, not in Germany. No, sorry. The transgender gay thing was not going to win you favor in Germany. Being a heterosexual traditional family will. And if you got married, then you would be able to get a loan for a German-built home to be built. We're talking German standard homes. Germans don't make shanty towns. They don't make favelas. They make quality stuff. There are homes that were built in Germany under Adolf Hitler that are still standing to this day. The ones that aren't bombed and destroyed, they're standing, and they're very good. You would be able to get a home. A beautiful home with an acre of land. Here's the condition. You get a loan. That loan was less than 30% of a single family income. So what that meant is that the man would go out and work. Less than 30% of his wages would pay the entirety of the mortgage. The woman would stay home and incentivized. There was an award coming for you if you did the one thing that only a woman can do. You make the baby. I'll plant the seed, you make the baby. Your job is also to tend to the 1 acre of land that was afforded to each plot. A half acre of that, you had to have a garden. Self-sufficiency. How are we treating the farmers of England today? Are we treating the farmers good?
Shut.
How are they treating the farmers in Europe and Netherlands?
Again, it's all over the
Yeah.
place.
How are they treating the farmers in America? Yeah, we see the pattern here. Bill Gates owns more agricultural land than anybody else. Oh yeah, it would be anti-Semitic to say where his loyalties are. So less than 30% would allow you to get a loan without interest. And if you wanted to reduce the amount due on the loan, get yourself a kid. One kid would wipe out 1/4 of the loan. Now, let's do the math here. If it's less than 30% of your monthly income, 1/4 of that would reduce the payment 25%, right? So now you're talking like maybe 22% of your income is paying the mortgage, right? You want to reduce it further? Oh, have 2 kids. 2 kids. 50% now. 50% of less than 30% at the very least is 15% of your single family income is paying off the mortgage for your beautiful German standard home with 1 acre of land. Oh, but you want to take more of the loan off, do you? Okay. Have 3 kids. That's 75%. You get the point? 4 kids, bam, done. Your no interest loan to have a home that is built to German standards that still exist today, self-sufficient with the garden that your wife tends to. When she's not making babies and looking after them, she's out in the garden, she's tending to the fruit and veg that you're growing out there. This right here, oh, that's the penultimate though. This is where you get into it. Now, you already get a free home with 4 kids, but that ain't even going to win you the bronze of this. In order to get the bronze level Mother's Cross, you had to have 5 or 6 kids. Think of that. How many women do you know who've had 5 or 6 kids?
Not many.
Not a whole lot, eh? It's kind of special, isn't it? I mean, I'm a man and all, so I really don't know what it's like to carry a child in my womb, and I never will. And it takes a heavy toll on the body. I know enough to know that women really, they give of their bodies tremendously. Really,
Yeah,
they
so
do.
much energy. Their bodies don't go back to an normal state for another 2-3 years
Literally.
after giving birth.
Yes, so this genocidal take over the world master race guy, so he really rewarded women for going through that. He really valued them for what they were doing. And if you wanted the bronze level of this, 5 to 6 kids. The silver, which is the one that I was wearing on my neck at the Rothschilds & Co., that the police have taken as evidence of my hate. This is the evidence for my hate right here. The silver one, you had to have 7 to 8 kids for the silver award. Think of that. That's a lot of kids, man. That's a lot of kids. And if you wanted this one, the gold, 9 to 10 kids. 9 to 10 kids. That's what the Mother's Cross was, a national award given to mothers because Adolf saw them as I see them. I believe there is nothing more beautiful than a mother. My mother is my saving grace. Any good thing I ever do in my life, that is my mother. I love you, Mom, to this day. I want her to smile too. I do. And I know she's still worrying about me up there. She is still worried. Imagine what I put my mother through with this crazy way I approach life. But everything I do is based on the love, the unconditional love that my mother gave me. Really, literally. And this is how Adolf felt about mothers in particular. Really, that is the truth about this man who we say is full of hate. And that symbol, the swastika, is a beautiful symbol. A beautiful symbol. Unlike the Star of Remphan or the Star of David in the Israeli flag, that is not a symbol of love or unity at all. It is the opposite. It is a satanic 6-pointed symbol, and you can have that and wear that on a necklace here. I think maybe you've met a person or two who has that necklace, and that's not a problem, but that swastika is a problem. I've got them tattooed on my body anyway.
How are you feeling today?
Yeah, I mean, man, I feel good, man. I mean, these police did me a favor, man. Obviously, it's some Jew up high in the food chain who was so pissed to see me saying, fuck you, Israel. Am I backing down on that? No. Hell no. They're genociding my people. I wouldn't be a man if I sat down and bowed to that crap. Go fuck yourselves, Israel. Literally. Fuck you. And if you ever decide to reject your satanic ways and actually come back to the light, I will embrace you. Until such time, you're not only my enemy, you're not only the genocider of my people, you are the enemy of all humanity. And your Samson option bullshit threat to the world is really the threat that we all need to pay attention to. Really. Our children will have nothing if we fail them. Why do I do what I do? I don't know, man. I don't know, but the real men need to stand up.
Again, did we miss anything today, brother? Did we miss anything? Touched on quite a lot. It's another 3.5 hour, 4 hour
Oh my
podcast.
God. Well, yeah.
You can talk, Ken. You can talk.
It flies by, my brother. You know what? I appreciate. Is there any one last thing I might like to say? I really do want to say to my family in Palestine, I love you. I love you. I love you so much. I know you got God, and I know it's a thing that is carrying you through, and I wish I could do more. I want to do more. I'm praying for you all the time, and you'll never be forgotten. And I swear you're inspiring the world. Palestine, you are inspiring the world, man. I love you. You have more love than you know, and these bastards in our democracies, they don't represent us real people out here who have humanity. They really do not. And I'm not making excuses for the things that have allowed us to sit by and allow these horrendous policies and these weapons to be used against you, but they don't represent us. And I do believe that, I know Israel is done.
Is there any... How can people get your social medias, Ken? What's your Instagram, your Twitter, for people to get in contact? Because obviously I think we'll do a podcast, but I think we'll just do it on Hitler and Germany and the knowledge that you've got. Because people say, listen, you're very pro-Hitler and against Hitler. We've been raised. Listen, I'm open-minded to it all, but I think it would be interesting to see the full works of it, how he started, what he done, and understanding, have we been tricked our whole life to then believing that someone was bad when they were possibly good. Like I say, I'm not educated enough, but I'm willing to learn about it and then give my own perception of it. I think it'd be interesting. But again, for coming on today, sharing your knowledge, people can agree, people disagree, that's fine. My job is only to ask the questions, and all my guests can do is answer. So would you like to finish up on anything else, Ken?
I'll tell you, the one last thing that I did just think of, Netanyahu visiting the Congress, right? We didn't really get into that, but let me just say a few things about that. Okay. We have an international criminal court. I want to give it just a brief like history so we understand the full context of what this means. And it will be the last point. The International Criminal Court in the Rome Statute. For those that don't know, we do have actual international laws that exist. We do. It's not functioning, but there are rules, they do exist, and under that system, Israel and America are not signatories to the International Criminal Court, okay? England is, so for the English audience, this is important to know. This is why high court judges, like the actual judges that exist here in England, that are the highest of the high, have already publicly warned the politicians here in the UK that their continued facilitation, arming of the Jewish state of Israel, while warrants have already been requested for their head of state, Netanyahu and Smoldrich, while genocidal intent has been openly declared, publicly repeated, and in fact indisputable, that British politicians literally have nothing to expect other than warrants to be issued for them from the same International Criminal Court, which is being threatened by America and the Jewish state. Literally, the judges are being threatened, like physically threatened, like you're going to die type mafia stuff, threatened. In this country, the best of the best, the high court judges have warned the politicians who represent the people that this is happening. Now, did the parliament invite Netanyahu? No, but the British government did also, by Israel's order, qualify UNRWA, the UN refugee department that deals with the allocation of food and medical help and all of the requirements of the captive population of Gaza. They have been deemed a terrorist organization by order of the Jewish state of Israel, and America is still agreeing with that. Britain recently reversed themselves. So, with all that considered, the International Criminal Court and the Rome Statute, international law has issued warrants, or has requested warrants now for Netanyahu. We're literally only days away, and there's tremendous power behind those warrants not being issued. If they do get issued, the British people are going to be in a very unique position to insist, to demand that Netanyahu, if he steps foot on this territory, because Britain is party to the Rome Statute, which means that it is subject to fulfilling its duties as a member state to arrest any war criminal who has a warrant issued for them, right? So, my point is, America, the American people, like the country that I was ready to fight or die for, your representatives just invited a man who is already on a warrant is coming, who's already declared that the people of Gaza are like Amalek, which means they're to be completely taken out, and has openly cut off the air or the food, the water, electric, everything. He's now been invited to Congress. When he went to Congress, this is literally what he said. He said that the people, this is the American government, and Elon Musk was a guest, a personal guest of Netanyahu, and literally was clapping for this speech, where Netanyahu literally is telling our Congress, like children, to like stop clapping. I'll tell you when to clap, literally. And in this speech, he called the protesters outside useful idiots. I know I said it quickly earlier, but it bears repeating these few points and a little bit more. He literally called those that protested outside against the genocide and starvation and mutilation and mass murder of people useful idiots. He said that Iran is funding them. Like, these people are out doing what they're doing in the streets because Iran is giving them money for this. And he called it a blood libel. And this effectively is a big, big insult. And if I'm to put it really bluntly, it is literally a big fuck you, not only from Netanyahu to all of the American people, but especially those that actually represent some level of humanity. It is a big fuck you, not only from Netanyahu, but from the U.S. government, who was all clapping for this. The U.S. government is mocking the American people and serving its master, a proven war criminal, who is the master slave owner who's treating us in parting like the goyim. We are the goyim. They are the chosen ones in their own mind, and their Talmud literally says that they can rape our children. It is holy and agreed upon within their Talmud. Their Talmud says that Jesus, who they hate, is boiling in hot excrement in hell. They say that Mother Mary is a whore, and they see us as goyim, and as slaves. And according to their spiritual beliefs, we are to be lied to, we are to be enslaved, and where we're surplus to requirements, to be killed. And that man who has this absolutely sadistic, horrendous disregard for humanity, actively engaged in a genocide, mocked the American people, and the U.S. government, who represents the taxpayers of America, literally had a big fuck you to America. And to the U.S. military, who put on this uniform and took an oath to protect and defend the Constitution of the United States and fight all enemies, foreign and domestic, you have a duty to refuse the orders. And it's those that love the Constitution, who love America, black, white, Christian, Muslim, Hindu, Sikh, Mexican. We all have one thing in common. We are Goyim and we outnumber them. We must come together. And when we do, we will liberate not only the world, we will liberate our children. And we have an opportunity to give it to our children in a way that we can feel good about. That is the opportunity that is presented by this mocking of not only the American people, but really the entire world, or Western world at least. So thank you for allowing me to say that. I haven't anything more to say.
I'm sure that's a lie, Ken. Listen, thanks for coming on today, and again, sharing the things that you think about in the world, the things that you have educated yourself on, the things that you're against. And like I say, people just question everything Ken says, I say, and give your own perception of life. But as long as everybody can get on and try and live in harmony, then, yeah, we can keep trying to get that anyway. But Ken, thank you, and I wish you all the best for the future.
Thank you. God
Cheers.
bless you.